Welcome to the Mound City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 9th. It's 6:04 and we're in Mound Council chambers. Can you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we got our agenda. Do we have any amendments?
No.
Okay.
Oh, actually, we have, we did receive the Orono Police Department report, so I guess you could put that under the agenda or just as a visitor, whatever you prefer.
Okay, we'll just put him right after, we'll just do it right away before comments.
Okay. So we'll amend it to make it number 4 and push it, or to make it number 5 and push everything down.
Yeah. Okay, so we got our agenda with that amendment. Can I get a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Okay, and can I get a second?
Second.
Should be.
Did you need a second?
Can you turn the speaker on if you can? He's upstairs. You got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that passes. And then we got consent agenda. Does someone want to go through those?
I can do that. Consent agenda, I'll just go with items A through F. A, approve payment of claims. B, approve minutes from the June 28th workshop, special workshop, and June 25th regular meeting. C, approve resolution approving the appointment of election judges. D, approve resolution approving public gathering permit for Bash Clash Fishing Lake Contest on Lake Minnetonka and Surfside Park on Friday, August 23rd. E, County Road 15 Dakota Regional Trail Crossing Cooperative Agreement. F, pay request number 2 in the amount of $26,870.19 to Blackstone Contractors for Public Works Project 24-10.
All right, I got the consent agenda. Does everybody want to talk about those? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Aye.
Councilmember McEnany?
Aye.
Councilmember Pugh?
Aye.
Councilmember Castellano?
Aye.
Mayor Holt?
Aye. All right, that all passes. All right, we got the Orono Police here. Do you want to come up? Welcome.
Hi. So I got our briefings from the last, the runs that I got from our secretaries was from June 1st through the 30th. Nothing really has shown up that has had any uptick. We've had juvenile problems, we've had our DWIs, our medicals, motor vehicle accidents, animal bites, animals at large, and some domestics and damaged properties that we've handled through the month of June. As for the incidents, Centerview Beach, I just wanted to run some numbers. They haven't really changed. We had 24 calls for service down there. Mostly being our men and women checking the beach and continuing to monitor any issues that may accrue. It shows that we've kind of been on top of it pretty well. We've had some jet ski companies come down there. We've talked to them. We've ushered them out of there as asked to do so. But other than that, it's been mostly our spot checkings and our directed patrols by our staff. So that's been kind of at a leveled off. Over the 4th of July weekend in the Mound area, we had 19 calls for service. It wasn't overly busy, but they had enough to keep themselves going all night and all day. It was mostly, again, parking complaints, animal complaints, civil matters, domestic, mental health issues, and some medicals that we attended to for over the 4th of July weekend. Surfside, again, same thing. Nothing is uptick there. We've had a few vehicles. I'm just listening to the men and women. They kind of are showing some frustration where they're going down there and they're actually issuing a ticket because there's one vehicle out of all those cars parked there that has a trailer on it. And they want to know why that people can't figure that out. If you're the only one in there, why aren't you figuring that out? So they're getting a little frustrated because they check it often, check it regularly, and next time you turn around, there's a vehicle there. So it's just one of those things, and we'll stay on it, and it's just we'll just have to keep watching it and taking care of it as it pops up. So, and then our CSO has finished his June detail. He is done now as of June 25th, I think he was his last day down there. So, and he said the whole time it's been pretty uneventful. There's been a few things, but it's just been a matter of redirecting people and re-educating people on some stuff. So, other than that, mostly we've been working hard on monitoring issues that we see could be a big problem in the future, i.e. the construction in the area. We're constantly monitoring that and trying to make sure everybody is obeying the detours and are not finding back streets to cut through to get out. So the guys are trying to stay on that. As you guys may know, Orono does have a bike patrol unit. One of the things I've seen just going through our reports and stuff is our theft from motor vehicles at night have gone down, and solely I want to think it's because these bike patrol guys are out in our neighborhoods constantly at night. I know I have 2 bike patrol officers on my shift, and they are, and when the dark comes, they get on the bikes and they go roaming through neighborhoods and checking areas just to make sure people are out roaming around, checking doors on cars that are parked on the streets. And then they do a lot of guys that aren't bike patrol, they've been doing a lot of door checking at night and finding a few open businesses that forgot to lock their doors, and we get that secured. So, you know, if there's one thing that, you know, you can stress to communities, check your doors, make sure they're locked. But we found them. And then the day shift sergeants have told me that we are kind of in an uptick of internet scams. So we've been dealing with a few of them the last couple of days. They've kind of seemed to uptick. So people need to be careful when they go online there and what people are requesting, what information, and if they're asking for money, be sure to double check that.
Okay.
Any
Does
questions?
council have any questions?
I don't.
No, I don't.
Can you thank the CSO officer, because I know that he had a lot of contact with people initially, which I think really helped keep
Yep.
the problems at bay, which is what we kind of assumed after
Yep,
a couple of weekends with his presence, it probably would make a difference, and it did.
I believe it did too, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank
All
you.
right, I will, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, number 5, I guess that's now 6. Comments and suggestions from anyone that's, their item is not on the agenda. You want to come up? Give us your name and address.
Jason Zattler, I am at 2345 Commerce Boulevard. I own the commercial building by Our Lady of the Lake. Most of you know me on the council and in the audience, but the long of the short, I've got just a couple of quick items. Right outside my office, there used to be the crosswalk sign. Jesse and I have already talked about this a little bit, but someone actually tripped the other day. What they ended up doing is the sign broke off, they pounded in with concrete screws, and they drilled like a cap, and they put the sign down. Well, that sign blew down sometime around April or May. Ryan, I think, or one of the guys picked it up, and it hasn't been put up since. It's a tripping hazard, and I'm an insurance agent, and I can tell you full well as Scott can too, that needs to be remedied pretty quickly. Someone's going to get hurt and they're going to break their arm or something along that lines. So that's the first item. The other item that I have is, this was a little while back, and I want to say it was right around May. Ryan can attest to this. One of the guys came down and said, hey, your water seems to be running. We have a basement, very large basement. Nobody's in that basement. We used to have a tenant there. Normally they would keep an eye on it, change filters, that kind of stuff. We had all of our, like our main line replaced when we had the sewer break out front of our office. That all got replaced, and supposedly, according to our guy that came in and installed our water softener, because we didn't have one prior to that, it clogged our water softener, so it just started running constantly. Didn't know about it, had no idea. We ran up a $500 bill. To give you some perspective, $500 is nearly half the year of my whole office building. So my question is, and I didn't bring the bill with me tonight, but would like to know if the city council would entertain, a partial refund or something, meet me in the middle, or, what I normally get paid, pay about $89, $90 a month and get me the refund for the rest. I had no idea what was going on. And it was all stuff that was coming from the water line that came through, and you should have seen, I told them to save somebody, didn't, but this stuff was so black. I mean, it was as black as this microphone. The water that was pouring out into the buckets and he cleaned out my water softeners, or not water softener, but my water heater as well, and that was just as bad. So, or I would have burned the elements out on that, on 1,000.
So what do you think caused this? Did you say?
The water guy that I had come in basically said it was all the Mound water that was coming through the main line. Somehow there must have been junk in that line, got shimmied up, and because our water lines are all brand new, it's the least path of resistance. So it all came through my line and clogged my whole system up in my office. I mean, we had hardly any water pressure or anything. It just kept running my water softener, and our water pressure went down, and that's when Ryan came through or one of the guys and said, "Hey, your water's running." And I said, "Yeah, I realized that because these guys came through, and my water softener guy came over and looked at it." So
So it was all residual from?
I don't know what it
initially
was
getting
from.
everything?
It's
I
just,
mean,
it
or
was
is
in
this
your
gonna be
line.
ongoing, or-
What's
I'm trying to
that?
understand, is this going to be ongoing, or?
No, I haven't had an issue since. And I haven't put a filter in or anything along that lines. I haven't had an issue since, but whatever was in that line, if someone was, maybe flushing the hydrant, I have no idea what was going on, but it clogged up my whole line,
So have you worked with Jesse about this yet?
We talked about it,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think the first step would be, let's see if we can work out something with Public Works and Jesse. I don't remember all the rules, ins and outs of reimbursing, but I know I've seen at least one person way back in the day that had like a running water issue, and I can't remember what we did with that, but.
If I may, actually Jesse and I already talked about it, and he said to come to the council meeting and just bring it up as an item.
Okay.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
This started obviously with utility billing and sort of matriculated. The issue is there's only one policy related to water bills as it comes to staff, and that's that I believe it's once a year we can waive a single late fee, but there isn't something that gives staff the unilateral power to, say, start some sort of payment plan, because any time you don't make a full payment, your water bill is going to accumulate late fees. So I'm not necessarily suggesting a new policy, but more so I wanted to sort of pass the torch in that if staff was just given full leniency to, say, this is one that we think is, egregious, but yours isn't, and there's, we just.
Case by case basis.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking to avoid, so, and I'm not necessarily saying we should do it here, but if this is something that the council was thinking about pursuing, having that threshold for when we, say, set up a plan that might waive late fees or something, that's sort of the direction that we would look for, so that if something like this happens again, we don't have to come back to council. So I guess I throw it to council to say, is this something, this is the type of situation, if it's something that's demonstrably city, if it's something that is, say, because of our water or because of something that we were doing, should the city staff have the authority to, or the responsibility to work with a resident or a business owner to, say, waive late fees over the course of 2 months or 6 months or whatever it may be. So that's the
So
sort
to
of
put you
how
on
we
the
got
spot.
there.
But this isn't a late fee, just so you guys know.
To put you on the spot, do you think that this is a city problem, that we did this to that?
If that's what the expert said, I mean, I don't know if.
So wouldn't you have to
it's all
work
lying under
with
the bus.
his water softener guy, maybe has some pictures, or maybe write up a letter, report, send it to you, you want to look at it. I don't know if we're prepared to make a decision right now on stage, but I agree maybe in the future, we maybe need more of a policy of like what we do with this situation.
And that would maybe be part of the standard, is just to, if it's, like I mentioned, if it's demonstrably city-led or city responsibility, then that would be a good baseline.
Right.
And
Right.
we're just trying to avoid doing things arbitrarily, and that's where the policy would come in, or a policy, or, so if we can do that, so you paid it, and that's what you're.
But yeah, I've already paid it. The
Yeah.
larger issue is, we all know that our water is about as egregious as it gets, from a filtration, because we don't even have a filtration system. And, I mean, that's why I'm asking, because this is on a case-by-case basis. I think it would make more sense that the council retain that power, but that's just me. And you do manage it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I'm not coming to you going, hey, I didn't pay my bills for the last 10 months, and I want all my late fees. This is an entirely different issue.
So for me, I would say, this is me, but I would say if you and Public Works think that this is an issue that we caused, that made this worse for him, and then we should give him the difference between the 89 that he normally pays and the 500.
And I can get the
Just a
bill.
second. If that's the case, I think that's what we should do. Going forward, for the next person that comes up here, I think we need to create a policy of what do we do in this situation. That's what I would say.
I agree with that. I just want to make sure we don't open the floodgates and have every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Not that you are, Jason. You're a wonderful community
Yeah.
Can we do one at a time,
Resident.
please?
I had the same exact thing happen in my commercial building at the same
Okay,
time.
can you give us,
Okay, so
just sit down and then we'll get to you.
all
in a
I
minute.
want to say is, I can understand how this happened. I just want to make sure this doesn't open the floodgates for anybody to come in and say, this is caused from Mound water. So I think writing a policy going forward to let city public works handle it, unless it's really out there, makes a lot of sense.
I would say you and Public Works deal with this issue.
Yeah.
If you guys come to an agreement that y'all are happy with, and if it's too much or you don't want to make that decision, bring it back to us
Yeah.
with actually facts and pictures and reports from someone, not just that this happened.
Sure, and we could even write a policy or something that maybe we.
You bring that back at the same point.
Yeah, and like I say, I don't mean to push things off necessarily, but sometimes just having a policy in place could keep things from elevating over and over, or,
Okay.
at least it gives us some, something to lean on without having to come to the council every time.
Yeah, didn't you mention something about like the authority to discuss it? Like it was a while ago, but you,
Maybe.
like,
Jason,
not a
did you
policy,
get-
but
did
like,
you ever get
you know,
your
you would have
friend?
the
Sure, the authority.
authority to
Taken care of.
discuss it
Was
with
that
whoever and
resolved?
then bring it to
So
council.
we got, hold on, now we got
Okay.
3 people talking. Just, hold on. You done?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering if the bib in front of your door ever got resolved, that problem?
No, so that was the last item on the docket here. Jesse and I also talked about this, but, so that concrete that got put in is actually cracked and, pretty much needs to be replaced already. It's chipped in a fairly decent, probably 3-4 inch section. You can tell there's other areas that are gonna start chipping. I know there's a warranty on that stuff, but, it's something that, they came in, did all the concrete, but they looked at mine and said, and they kept walking to the next one. They didn't actually touch mine. But then there's the low spots that we've already had discussions about, you may recall, where, there's lips in there, tripping hazards. I get water that gets retained in there. Rather than replacing it, I think the alternative, because we worked with Matt, and they basically said no. But maybe we go with rather than take it out, go with the styrofoam expansion where it lifts the concrete up, which is a lot less expensive. And you're maintaining that concrete the way it is today, rather than pulling it up and then hopefully not, it's not gonna shift on you after you put a new piece in. I think that's the larger concern. But if we were to, they drill a couple holes in, that whole piece lifts up and they're done. And there's only I think 3 pieces that need to be, because they're all sectioned off, and it may be all one piece, but I'm not the expert, but that's something that I'd still like to address on the council,
Okay.
so.
And again, have you talked with Ryan? And
Yep.
let's not get into a whole debate tonight, but
Oh, we already
Just-
have it planned.
Okay.
Contractor won
Okay.
the bid for the other sidewalk phase. They're coming back. I have it planned to be done already. I
Okay.
just haven't gotten communication with you yet.
Okay.
So,
cool.
it's
All right.
already in the works.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Cool.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. And then we'll get back to you on the water thing. If you want to give him whatever reports or whatever you can give him.
Sounds good.
Thanks. All right, can you give us your name and address?
Hi there, Claudia Lacey, 2529 Commerce Boulevard, Mound, Minnesota. I own a commercial building right on Commerce Boulevard. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I didn't want to speak about this, sit down and come back on another issue. But I had the exact same thing happen with my water at the Langdon. We are there, we are open 7 days out of the month. We don't take showers, we don't wash dishes, we don't use the bathroom, we don't run water. My water bill went from about $100 to over $700 with no explanation. So this is going to open up a floodgate. If I did call the city, I did say, this is a problem, oh my gosh, what's going on? And, you know, I was told, was your toilet running? The toilet is, I'm like, the toilet's not running. You can hear a toilet when it's running. And so I was told, there's really nothing you can do. I paid the bill, but this is going to open up a floodgate, because now I'm going to go back and get that bill, because that's exactly what was told to me as well. And when I called, for example, the city of Minnetrista, they said, well, sometimes when there's something like this that happens, they work with you on the bill. I got, that is not going to happen. So I'm another person, line me up with Jason. You're going to be looking at my bill as well. So I'm actually here tonight to talk about the, are we on number 6 yet?
No.
Okay, so I should sit down.
I have a question, though.
Sure.
Did you have someone come out, like Mr. Zattler did, and kind of assess, like, they said it wasn't his water softener, there was something on the other side?
Yeah, it was this miracle that one of the Teamster guys, one of the public utility works gentlemen was coming by and he said, do you know your water's running? And I said, no, my water's not running. We don't run the water. And he said, well, it's running. And, you know, and he told me that there was something going on. We do have the same, he said it was, I can't remember. It was what Jason said. It's the same time frame, the same situation, that they must have been running water through the pipes or did something after they were working on it. So that's not for me to figure out. All I know is my water bill went from this to 600 times higher with no more additional water use. Anyway, so there's that. Do you want me to sit down until we get back up to 6?
I suppose in case someone else has something they want to, I don't know if anyone else does, but.
I'll sit down. Thank you. Thank you for hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to give Jesse your bill or whatever issues you have. Yep. Next, yeah. Can you give us your name and address?
Isabel Grant, 3367 Warner Lane. I have a few questions.
Yeah.
My first one is, when will the water fountain at the skate park be fixed? Does anyone have an answer for that?
I can answer the fact that the Parks Commission just finished doing our annual, we walk through all the parks and give a list of improvements. And there were items listed for the skate park. Then the Public Works staff puts in the work orders. So I don't know where they're at in their work orders, but I'm sure, you could check with them to make sure it's on that list of things that they're looking at, and they'll be addressing it, I'm sure, in the next year or next, couple of months.
Okay.
If you want to hold a second, he's right there.
Yeah, he's right.
Can you just tell us
Yeah.
quick?
We actually have all the water fountains shut off. We're trying to figure out a way to put inline filters in because of the high manganese.
Oh, okay.
And that was a
Yeah.
recommendation by the health department, not to have the public drinking fountains throughout town on, because there's no way to label, or a lot of people in town know we have high manganese, but there isn't a great way to let anybody who just comes and enjoys one of our parks know that. So
Yeah.
we're working on trying to figure out ways to filter each individual water service. And
I was actually down there with my parks employee today, trying to
At the
figure
skate
out.
park?
Yep.
Love
Trying
it,
to
I
figure
love
out.
it there.
What's that?
It's great over there.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out a way to get a inline filter.
Okay.
So,
Cool. I'm an artist and I have a lot of interest in mural design. I am a collage artist by trade. So I've put together a couple of vision boards. Those are just a collage of images and words representing a person's wishes or goals intended to serve as inspiration or motivation. So this one I made because Bruce over at Big Stone,
Yeah.
you guys know Bruce?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an idea for a mural for the Tonka Toys building. And then I have an idea for murals around the skate park. So I've created a couple of examples of like my art style. And this is the one for the skate park as well. So I guess my question there is, when can I start?
Love it.
Or how can I get a permit? Or how can I start,
So
you know,
the-
helping the parks?
Yeah, so the first thing would be to probably go to the Parks Board.
Yeah, and the Parks Board for the new park that's going to be downtown, next to Artesa and Lost Lake Villas, that's going to be a new park. There is actually a designated art and hammock walk in which we're going to be seeking artists to
Right.
provide
I'm
stuff
super
there.
interested in the skate park
Well, but
specifically.
we also cover the skate park. We meet this Thursday.
I
This
think it was
Thursday.
It got
canceled.
It got canceled? Oh, sorry, my meeting got canceled. Okay, but anyway, we normally meet the second Thursday of the month. And we can put you on our agenda.
Yeah, that would be
and-
great.
And come forth, and we can talk about how to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
There are state grants through the State Arts Board.
Yeah,
that we
and
can
Bruce and I
pursue.
were just throwing ideas of starting a GoFundMe to fundraise money
Mm-hmm.
to execute the murals. For the one on the Tonka Toys building, our ideas refer to Indigenous culture, Tonka Toys, and Lake Minnetonka. So those would be the
Yeah.
themes.
Now, the Tonka Toys building, I think we'd have to contact the owners of that.
Right.
The city doesn't have any.
It's privately owned.
Yeah, it's privately
Totally.
owned. But for the parks, we're definitely looking for art to be incorporated.
Yeah,
in the
Bruce
park.
also, so then it goes into my third idea, which I think everyone will like. It's a dog park. The wooded area behind City Hall and the skate park would be a perfect spot for a off-leash dog park, in my opinion. I think the only thing you'd run into is that it's owned by the city. It might have some indigenous culture, like Indian burial mounds included. I've spoken with several dog owners who've expressed interest in seeing an off-leash dog park. It would be positive for all demographics, and Bruce over at Big Stone would be interested in being involved in the design of a dog park in that wooded area.
We've talked at the park board about dog parks, and, unfortunately, the issues, the negative issues tend to rise
Yeah.
to the top of the conversation. But we've never talked about actually initiating a dog park. So it's an idea that I'd say bring to us, and we'll talk about it and consider it.
Sherry Pugh. Can I, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to email Jesse.
you've been emailing
Do you
a
have
little
his-
bit.
Oh, okay, you know.
Yeah, and
I haven't
Megan,
heard back, though.
Megan, the deputy,
Say it again?
Megan is our staff person for parks, right? Is that, would it be good for you?
Maggie's works with the Parks
Yeah.
Commission, but
Yeah, I've spoken with Maggie and Colette Roberts about some of my ideas, so guess I'm just waiting for the green light.
Yeah.
That's all.
So yeah, see parks, and then, I'll just say the one comment on the dog park thing. We have 3 dogs. I'd love a dog park.
It would be awesome.
My wife, runs them south, or west, I should say, at the ballpark. It's kind of an unofficial dog park.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if people want to
Right.
run their dog over there.
The wooded area
No,
really would be perfect because it would serve kind of as a double, like, it could be kind of citizen supervision of activities that happen at the skate park.
Right.
And the skate park can be a very dangerous place.
Yeah.
But I'm only focusing on the positives that could come out of giving the skate park more TLC. But yeah, so I've got lots of ideas and I'd
All right.
love to share them.
Yeah, share them out.
Cool.
Cool.
Welcome you to the Parks Commission.
Sweet. This is a present to city council, so
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
thank you.
I'm not bringing this home. Where can I leave it?
Leave it right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right, do we got anybody else that wants to come up? All right, we're going to go on to Planning Commission recommendation, public hearing consideration of proposed ordinance amending City Code, Chapter 129. We got Rita coming up.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Rita Trapp, planning consultant for the city. So the request before you this evening is consideration of a proposed ordinance amendment to amend the city zoning code related to cannabis businesses. I'm going to provide a little bit of background, and the city attorney will also probably have some additional comments or may have some clarifications, as this is a topic that touches zoning, but it also touches areas outside of zoning. So I'm going to kind of touch areas outside of zoning, but that is not my areas of expertise, and so I'm glad that the city attorney is here to answer those questions. But they are interrelated, so it's hard to have the conversation about zoning without talking about the other elements. So in 2023, the Minnesota legislature did approve expanded legalization of THC, cannabis products, and cannabis businesses. At the time, they established the Office of Cannabis Management, OCM. Cities need new licensing/registration and zoning requirements as a result of this legislation. Sales were expected to begin in 2025, and so it was a topic that we anticipated talking with you all about at the end of 2024. However, in July, so in May of this year, they made a change to the state rules to establish a new social equity licensing process. And so the reason we're before you this evening, the reason the Planning Commission considered this at their meeting last month, as you can imagine, that happened in May, so in June we have the information. We're trying to move at the speed we can so that we can have at least the zoning regulations in place by the time any of those applicants may be considering where they would want to locate. Just a little bit of background, social equity. Those are applicants that can qualify for cannabis-related licensing because of a number of factors. And there's actually a list, and so it's hard for me to capture all of those elements, but I tried to summarize kind of the top ones that I anticipate. If you had been convicted of an offense prior, related to cannabis prior to May 1st of 2023, or if you were a parent, child, dependent, spouse, there was other people, of someone that was convicted of such an offense, a veteran or a current former member of the National Guard. There are provisions related to if you live in a neighborhood that has a number of factors. So there's a number of different ways that someone may qualify as a social equity applicant. The benefits for them is they have prioritization in the licensing process. There are also a certain number of licenses per license type that are designated for social equity applicants. And they have some access to resources. So the reason that we're here is that there is a process that has already started for social equity applicants. They can apply to be part of a lottery that the OCM is going to do and have the ability to get licenses. And that'll be in advance of what we were anticipating at the beginning of 2025. So our goal this evening is to talk about potential zoning regulations. So where might these be located in the community? And what, if anything, do we want to use as factors into that consideration? Licensing and registration. Currently, cities can license edibles until 2025, and then the OCM will do licensing, and so the city can do a registration process. This is where we are tipping our toes out of zoning and into registration and licensing, which I don't normally get involved with, and the city attorney would be more involved with. So on that element, I would anticipate you'll have more conversation, and it will probably be outside of the planning elements, because business licensing is usually not something that the planners and zoning typically deals with. My understanding is that the cities must allow at least one business per 12,500 residents. You could allow more if you wanted, but generally the foundation is that we have to allow one. And then there's some other, and this again, if you have more questions, the city attorney is here. If there's enough registrations, if the threshold is met countywide, then you wouldn't have to allow a registration of such a business. In Hennepin County, my understanding is it's about 102 businesses. So it's likely that Mound may have to have one business, but that's still not, that's still undetermined at this point. And then the cities could operate a municipal cannabis store. And again, this is all about registration, which is not part of what we're talking about this evening, but it is good background and foundation for why some of the conversations we're going to have, we need to have happen. Other provisions also, and I bring this up because the Planning Commission was asking some questions about this. So starting August 1st, Minnesota residents 21 years and plus can use cannabis flower and products on their private property. Or if you are visiting a friend on their private property and they're okay with it. But again, the idea of it being on private property is the important part. Or events that are licensed for on-site consumption. So those are kind of the two areas. The Clean Indoor Air Act does, if it's applied, similar to how smoking is applied, you wouldn't be allowed to have that be allowed use indoors, the use of cannabis, and that's related to the Clean Indoor Air Act. And then there's also the reality that individuals can cultivate up to 8 plants, of which 4 can be mature as long as it's enclosed, locked space, not open to public view. So those are all provisions that are just foundation for you. If you have questions, the city attorney can provide probably more information than I can. I'm going to turn now to the zoning side, but I think these foundations are important given the conversation we had with the Planning Commission. Oops.
I have a quick question. If you can go back to the equity portion, I'm still confused on this. So if you've been convicted of what, a cannabis,
For an offense related to having cannabis.
then suddenly they're eligible to register for a license to open a business?
That part, that's my understanding. The attorney may have other commentary on that, but that's how I understood it.
Go ahead.
If I may.
Yes.
Okay, so, as you know, the statutes were passed to legalize cannabis manufacturing and retail and use in Minnesota. As stated, the Office of Cannabis Management was created with the goal of having licenses for manufacturing and for retail sales starting in 2025. The legislature made a determination that in order to ramp up to the 2025, there needs to be some cultivation done because only Minnesota grown, my understanding, Minnesota grown can be used for the sale in Minnesota. So the what passed was an early cultivation act. Back in May of this year, the bill was passed, and the understanding is that the Office of Cannabis Management may be issuing licenses for this early cultivation at the end of July. The opinion of my office and also for League of Minnesota Cities is that we need to take a look at zoning ordinances, and I'll get into that in a little bit, to deal with this early cultivation. Now, under the law, there's retail, and then there's everything else. Retail is dispensaries, those places that somebody from the public can go and purchase the product. Then you have the manufacturing where it's grown, and also where things are made. Okay, that's different. The retail side of it, that's where the registration comes in. There is no retail right now. There's not going to be there is no retail at this point under what was passed. So we don't need to worry about the registration. What we're worried about is the cultivation part of it. And those items that are going to take place that are non-retail. Under the law statute right now, the city cannot prohibit the establishment or operation of a cannabis business or hemp business. That's state statute. Cannot stop it. But we can put reasonable restrictions in through zoning. Okay, the restrictions are to deal with, as you stated, there's for retail, there's one business. You can have one business per 12,500 residents. Do the math, that's one in the city, okay? That's nothing to do with manufacturing and non-retail. Also, they can have, and Rita will get into this too, there can be buffer zones. There's a maximum buffer zone we can have, and we can work within that buffer zone, remembering that we can't prohibit, you can't regulate out the business, so you can't have buffer zones that create basically, that the businesses can't operate in the state, in the city. So that's the kind of the balancing act that we have with it. So the reason we're here today again is that early cultivation prior to 2025 was passed by the legislature. We have the city has the ability really only to control it through the zoning right at this for manufacturing. And if we didn't have it, if we don't create where the zones it can be in, theoretically it can be in any zone. So that's the reason why I proposed zoning to deal with this. And if we're in reality, if we are looking at the manufacturing, thought process was let's look at all of the different businesses and deal with it now, the zoning part of it. Now, with regard, you had a question with regard to the equity. That's all state statute. There's a laundry list of those that are considered equity applicants, and it says if convicted of an offense involving possession or sale of cannabis or marijuana prior to May 3rd, 2023. That's just.
So let's reward them.
I can't. Well,
With
it's not up
the
to
ability.
us.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to
yeah.
understand the thought process here.
I don't know the thought process, but that's the state of
You
Minnesota.
can't guess?
I'm not going to make the assumption of what the rationale was because I wasn't part of those legislative hearings. So this is not even OCM. This is the state legislature. OCM doesn't even put. OCM has, as far as I know at this point, has not. I don't have any rules in place yet, so we're still basing everything off the statute. This is so. If anybody wants to see the list, just Google Minnesota statutes 342.17. That's the list. So everything we're dealing with right now as a city is what's created by the state legislature, period.
I mean, am I alone thinking this just makes zero sense? Let's reward a convicted person with the ability to get a license to distribute what you were convicted for?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I just don't even, it just makes no sense.
Right. But
Convicted felons deserve to own a business.
Well,
hold on, wait.
I'm
this
not
is
trying to get into an argument. I'm just trying to understand what logic there is in this.
So
Why they get special privilege.
well, I think
Well, if we want to talk about privilege.
okay. Hold on. This is not a town hall, so we need to have discussion with regards to the council and myself on this, and try to keep okay. So, because what we need to do is provide information for you so you understand the decision that you're making. Remember, everything we have here, whether it's right or wrong, is what the statute says. And what we're dealing with right now is the manufacturing side. Now, we have not seen the rules and regulations that are going to be put in place by the Office of Cannabis Management. One of the things that the Office of Cannabis Management is charged with doing is working with cities to create a model ordinance. We don't have that. So that's why we're here right now. This is what we have right here is based off of a zoning ordinance that my office and myself have used for other cities. And apparently that is now being used as a model for other cities that we don't represent. So this is working within the framework that we have in the statute. We have, this is something we have, this is the control we have. Now, if there is a concern about the control that, or anything in the statute that there's a concern, that's something to be taken up with the legislature, and go through that route, or even the Office of Cannabis Management as they're making their rules. Okay, that's what we have to do. The city has no ability, the only ability that we have as the city to address this is through our zoning, restriction in the number of retail businesses, and in registration. But registration is really, it's a different process. We're not going to draft those at this point because we don't need those because it's only deal with retail. But, like I said, the zoning is dealing with everything as a whole because let's deal with it now.
Thank you for reeling that back in. And Rita, I just want you to clarify. Rita, you mentioned that you're pretty sure all cities up to 12,000 people must have.
It is
It is a must, or?
one business per 12,500.
We have to.
No, you must allow, you must,
No,
under
we
the
must
state,
allow it.
yeah, under the state statute, we must allow one business per 12,500 residents. There's some countywide language within there.
Meaning if they
Yeah,
ask.
and-
You don't have to create one if there is one.
Right. You just have to, basically have to allow, but remember, this is, then you can put that limit on there saying, we only gonna allow one in, in this city. And remember, it's not, you have to have 12,500 residents. It's, if you're in a city and you're, say, even something, say of like, we said we're under 9,000 now, that means one. If we were a city of 15,000, that means two.
So the city of Mound has no ability to say, at this time, we don't want any cannabis in our city?
Well-
Or businesses, rather, not the drug. Is that correct?
Well, with the retail, you can put a moratorium in place, but it doesn't make sense because there's no licenses for retail anyway. So it was just an exercise, again, nothing passed in the legislature towards the retail side, it's the manufacturer.
But there is truth that there is not an ability to totally ban it from the city.
Correct.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know it's been maybe frustrating listening at the planning commission. This is not staff. We're just telling you what the minimum that the statute says you have to do.
Right.
And that's
Thank
what
you.
we're trying to put into place.
Yeah, and in case if anybody wants to look, for the language with regards to the retail operations, the one per 12,500, it's Minnesota statutes 342.13, subparagraph H. Now, there's really only two statutes that deal with us. It's this local control, that's what it's labeled, you can see that right here. It says local control. And the other one is the registration, which we're not dealing with today.
Okay.
So, again, what we're looking at is, this is a reaction to what happened in the legislature this past session, which was to allow early cultivation. What we were planning on doing, and every city was doing, is waiting for those model ordinances, and then take a look at those and adopt something uniform throughout, that we could look at. But that basically, think of in the rationale that thinking that you need to manufacture in order to have a license in 2025, they have now allowed for this called early cultivation. So that's what we're here.
All right.
Did you have a?
I had a question. So you can allow up to one business up to a population of 12. Does that include a municipal dispensary, or can it be, if you have a municipal dispensary, is that the one, or is it one plus?
Answer that? Or do you?
No, you can, well, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
So if there's a municipal dispensary, the city can still, it doesn't count towards the cap. So if Mound said, well, we just want one, if there was a muni dispensary, there could still be one private, but then it's like the optics of, you
Yeah.
want to compete, or
Right.
one is enough. So, am I wrong? I could say yes.
Yeah, no, I would say that's part of the unclear part of it, I think, with regard, and that's why hopefully the rules will do it, because the way the statute reads, is that there's that language that it says you can limit the number of licensed cannabis retailers, so on and so forth, the retail businesses. But then there's also another section that says that you can have a municipal dispensary, like a municipal liquor store, with no rules beyond that, just saying you can have it, and we haven't seen how that interplays. So, you could be right, or not, we don't know how that's playing out yet, but.
So my understanding is that, like the language that I last read was, if there's a municipal dispensary, then it doesn't count towards the cap, so then we could still have one more. But you can also decide that one is enough for Mound. Yeah, and if it's only a muni, then it's only a muni.
Right, and I think that's where it's going at. And remember, this is one for 12,500. If you want to have three, go ahead. This is this is sort of like, this is
The minimum.
you can be less restrictive, you just can't be more restrictive.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but and when we deal with, and my understanding is that the way it's supposed to work out is that all the licensing goes through Office of Cannabis Management. They deal with the licensing of all these businesses. They'll also take over the low potency hemp, the gummies. They'll take, once they take it over, then our licensing will be preempted. So they're gonna take over everything. And cannabis, the cannabis retailers will be, will have that limitation. Looking at it, the low potency doesn't have that same restriction. So you could have several licenses within a district that have like the low potency, but they still, that's why we want to deal with the zoning on it. I think we already have that in our code, and so it's, with their low potency, it's kind of matching that. But my understanding is that they get their license, then they'll come, we have this registration system that we're not putting in place now, but we will for retail. And basically, if they don't meet the zoning requirements, then they won't be allowed to operate in the city under the license. I mean, but these are, like I said, we can't zone them out.
Well, as a city, if they are offered, if they pass through the registration and they're given
Yeah.
the registration, does the city have any recourse? I mean, or are they just gonna come into Mound, not living here, and say, we're gonna?
According to the statute, and we're waiting for the rules too, but the statute, there is a process for us to go to the OCM make complaints, and they're the licensing authority.
But so you're saying the city doesn't have a lot of control on who comes into our city to do this?
Correct.
That's insane.
Well, this is.
No, I'm not.
Well, I know. No, I know if law, I know nobody said laws are logical.
Okay.
Okay, but remember, this is the first thing you'll read in the statute. It says, we may not prohibit the establishment or operation of a licensed business. A licensed business comes from the state. We can have zoning to put it in certain zones, because you can modify the time, place, and manner. They're looking at time, place, and manner, so you can restrict the area you're in, the zone, and you can create buffer zones. But if you're I look at it as when they say time, place, and manner, I look at it as the similar analysis would be under businesses under the First Amendment. You can't zone them out of your city. You have to allow it somewhere. And so if you have to take a look at the buffer zones, the zone you're in, and allow these businesses to operate.
Well, what if a cartel from Mexico decided, I want to go to Mound? We have no control over that.
Remember,
If they pass registration.
well, they would have to pass whatever stringent requirements the state has with regards to who gets the license, the insurance, and those things. And again, it's a state control license. So I guess if in a parade of horribles, if it's a bad actor and they happen to get a license, they want to come in here, it's a state license. But there is a process in the statute that provides for the city to complaints to license. And simply because you have a license doesn't mean you get to keep that license. If there's problems, it can go away. And this is how the statute works.
Yeah.
Now, we're still waiting for the rules, but the only reason we're here, is because of this early cultivation. We need to have some zoning in place to make sure that we provide a place for them to manufacture, if they want to come in town and manufacture, that place, and that we want to be able to box them into certain zones.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yep.
All right, keep going.
All right,
Is that a yes or no question?
let's see. Most of this part we've talked about. We can do the local zoning, but we cannot totally ban it, which is why the discussion of the buffers, as I introduced in the memo, is important because of how they can work together. Just for everybody's benefit of knowing there's a number of different businesses, and we included in your packet at least some information. If you go to statute, you can't find a specific definition. I was hoping I could do that, but it's kind of more under the licensing, so that's why we sent the summary sheet. There's a lot of different things involved in terms of the licenses and what they mean. The use table, we included a use table in the ordinance, and that use table looked at trying to establish where cannabis businesses would be allowed. Looking at the choices that we have in Mound, the suggestion was retail businesses would be looked at for the mixed-use downtown and corridor areas, and the manufacturing, processing, cultivation would be in the industrial district. There's not a lot of other choices besides that. Otherwise, we're into residential districts or into our neighborhood commercial, of which there's just a few located right adjacent to the residential neighborhood. So the focus was thinking about the downtown area because there aren't very other districts that we can put them in. We can require setbacks, and our buffers is probably a better word, meaning we can say that you can be in that district, but you can't be within a certain distance of certain elements. So statute specifically says cities can have it up to 1,000 feet from private and public schools, or 500 feet from daycares, playgrounds, athletic fields, youth-oriented park facilities, and residential treatment centers. So we've done a variety of different iterations of maps, and I believe in front of you are some additional ones and were in the packet. We've done some that are singular, some that are combined. I will walk through these, but I certainly have more that I can show on the screen. We started at the premise of the 1,000 feet from private and public schools and 500 feet from daycares and parks. We don't have, as far as I could tell, in the licensing any residential treatment facilities, so that's why that's not included. I did a search at the state in Human Services to find out any licenses we had, so those parcels are included in the buffers that you have. I believe this one is a smaller buffer, and that only is related to what the Planning Commission talked about. So we originally started with 1,000 feet for public and private schools and 500 feet for parks, and we took all parks. We were very liberal in the park definition. We basically, for those that are familiar, there is a park map on the city website that has all of the parks listed, beaches, parks, all of those, and all of those were included in the map. So the veterans, both of the veterans, parks, plaza, memorials are included. And when we do all of those and we combine them all together, there is a little bit of a concern about whether we have de facto zoned things out if we do that. If we are in agreement that mixed-use downtown and corridor are the appropriate locations and industrial is the appropriate location, if we agree with that starting point, then we need to look at the buffers and adjusting the buffers to make sense. I do have with me the other buffer maps, and I'll show them in a second. The Planning Commission considered this at their July meeting. There was kind of a split in the Planning Commission about the need for buffers and how much the buffers would be. Knowing that we needed to get something in place, I think that's why there was a movement to move forward some type of recommendation, and they landed on the recommendation that they thought the most folks could support was the idea of a 500-foot buffer from public and private schools. So there were some folks that felt like a buffer wasn't necessarily needed, but felt like it made sense to buffer from schools. Other folks felt like doing the maximum buffer was important. So the biggest message that they took, I think, was without them moving a recommendation forward, you wouldn't be able to hear it tonight, and then we wouldn't have our regulations in place. So I think if they had their opportunity, they probably would have liked to have more discussion, and Councilmember McEnany can correct me, but I don't feel like they did the 500-foot because everybody was a unanimous consensus. It was, we realize where we are at, we're under this time constraint, we need to keep moving this forward, so we're going to do something that most people can agree with. And so I think it's understood that there'll be more discussion this evening about those buffers. I do want to remind you, and I think you all know, it is a public hearing tonight, and so there will be an opportunity for community members to provide feedback. The reason I wanted to move through is I just wanted to talk about the buffers a little bit more. I mean, I'm just going to go to the PDF so that it's a little easier for us to see and look at. Yes?
A quick question. So on these slides, the Planning Commission landed on the recommendation of a 500-foot buffer from public and private schools, but not a parks buffer.
Correct.
Is that kind of like
That's what they landed on.
Parallel from alcohol? I mean,
What?
Is that kind of like the same as liquor stores?
I think that was part of it. It was the question about how our liquor stores alcohol treated, and so do we need to treat this different than that?
Okay, I was just wanting to clear that up.
Unless, is that what you understood? Okay, you understand. I don't want to speak out of turn, but that was my understanding. And again, that was not unanimous. I would say there's certainly people on one side that was no buffer needed, folks on the other side that said maximum, and so how do you find a middle ground for what that
I
was?
agree that I felt really strongly that we just needed to move it forward. So with a 500 buffer, everybody agreed on that for a school. So we didn't have the benefit of Mr. Landsman at the Planning Commission, and I think there were still a lot of questions. So I think it felt good to be able to move it forward so we can discuss it tonight.
Yes. So I believe in front of you, right? In front of you is some other maps. It was a little bit interesting because we provided combined maps before the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission felt they were too overwhelming, but yet Councilmember McEnany said, actually, that was helpful, so I'm back to having combined maps, but I do have them individual too, if you want to look at schools versus parks, just because it gets to be very busy. Happy to do whatever works for you. I forget that this does that. Sorry. PowerPoint does a really good job of 2 screens, and then I lose it when I go to this. Second, I'm trying to find my mouse. Where did it go? Let's go and get it. Oh, there we go. Sorry. It's kind of funny. Let's see if I can pick this up. So in front of you is the 1,000 foot buffer and 500 foot buffer. And we also zoomed it in, and that also was at the request of the Planning Commission, is if we are in agreement that mixed use downtown and corridor and industrial are the districts, which they felt were appropriate. I do have the maps that do the whole city, but they felt like if that was it, that was our area, then it would be better to zoom it in so that you can see those areas better. This 1,000 foot buffer, the concern that staff has is just that it takes up a lot of the area for the mixed use downtown and the corridor. That's why there was a concern about the 1,000, because we can't make it so that you can't have a business anyplace. And so we need to find a buffer that does that balancing act of allowing some places that we feel are okay, and then buffers the rest. So that's one of the reasons why 1,000 is the maximum you can do. Staff had a little bit of discomfort about the ability of that to withstand if someone would challenge our ability of whether that, knowing, for example, the one industrial area is covered on the part of the building that really is the part that people could use of Balboa. So that's why. We can certainly look at those. And then there was a 750-foot buffer done as well, which I believe you also received. And I know these are tough, and I can pull up the individual ones as well. And then we do have the 500, and we didn't go less than 500. And what happens is the buffers shrink as we move down those feet and kind of pop up areas that might be appropriate if the city was going to have one. They might be the places that they could be.
So not to complicate things, but Balboa is considered industrial, right?
Correct.
But in that building, there are youth businesses. And so was
Yep.
that?
We had a lot of.
Just couldn't, yeah.
I know, and there was a discussion with the Planning Commission about the trail, and the trail has lots of, it's one of those elements that I don't disagree with you, and I know what's in there.
Yeah.
But if we had another area that we thought would be appropriate, we can certainly look at that. It's a challenge in a community like yours to try and find a place that has the districts available and the buffers make sense and doesn't have other uses mixing in there.
What's the use?
It's a
Well,
soccer.
there's
Oh.
a soccer team and there's an indoor skate park arcade for
Yeah,
kids.
and what we're working with, again, you know, like
And a school.
being a dead horse, is
And a
dealing
school,
with
yeah.
the statute, which talks about, it's the maximum setback you can have, and that's where we're working with, is that 1,000 feet from a school or 500 feet from a daycare, residential treatment facility, or an attraction within a public park that is regularly used by minors, like playgrounds and athletic fields. So that's kind of what, you know, what we're dealing with. That's,
Yeah.
so if there's, happens to be a business like the soccer that happens to be youth go to it, that's not in the statutory laundry list.
or in Stonegate.
Yeah.
It's the same situation.
Do we have to look at businesses that are already established? Can't we just wipe the whole town out and just make a little piece somewhere on the corner right before Minnetrista? And say, well, you can build your own place there.
So we generally pick zoning districts that are existing in the community.
But per the ordinance, I mean, do we have to do it?
Well, no, there is no.
You have to let one person be in, right? Does it have to be in like a building that exists?
The way the statute, all the statute says is that we can adopt reasonable restrictions on time, place, and manner of the operation of these businesses. You know, you do it through zoning.
Okay, so if we drove enough circles around everything and my house is the only one left, that's yellow, that's approved. And I'm like, I wanna start up grow my own weed at home. I could just do it there?
Well, you can grow your own. You can do it now.
Well, whatever, to sell, to cultivate, to sell.
Well, we're not allowing it in the residential zone, so that's.
Okay, so you can't do residential at all?
No, we're saying.
I mean, you could.
You could, but I don't
You
think.
could decide you
No,
want to.
I wanna not do it.
Right now it is not. Right now we're only
But you
allowing.
have to let them do it in a resident, or a business.
Well,
We have
That's what we're talking about.
We have to let them in some zone.
right.
And it has to be a zone that,
Okay, it doesn't help when everybody's talking at the same time, so.
we have to allow it in some zoning district.
Yeah.
And then we can establish buffers to limit how much of, so that it's separated from those uses, but we can't overlap the circles so much that there's nothing left.
And again, remember, it says here in the statute, it says, city may not prohibit,
Right.
but we can.
So if you, okay, we're gonna give public comment in a minute here. Oh, excuse me, we'll get there in a second. Go ahead.
Okay, so statute specifically states you may not prohibit,
Okay.
right? But you can restrict through time, place, and manner. So we could create, that's what we're doing now, is trying to narrow it down so that we can figure, saying, okay, these are acceptable places within the city for this, for one retail business, because you have to allow that one retail business. Or for manufacturing, we want to stick it, I think we're sticking in the industrial zone.
Yeah, because there's only one building, one
Yeah.
place in town.
Yeah, so, and now I just to say that the city's creation of these zoning ordinances doesn't mean these private property owners have to allow anything. This is not, the private property rights are completely different than what the city zoning. It's just the city as a governmental entity is limited in how we can control it. But if private property owners say no, then it's not gonna happen. I mean, that's a different level, but it has nothing to do with the city government.
So we can restrict it as much as we can to say Harbor Wine and Spirits and Jubilee, or maybe just Harbor, and draw the circle. So we can just do it there and that's it.
In essence, that's what we're talking about with
That's what
these
we're trying to do.
buffers is, we're looking at what is Mound Marketplace, Stonegate, and Commerce Place. I mean, yes, there are others, and we can certainly take out other districts, but that's what we were looking at in the buffers, because if you do them too big, then those things aren't possible. It's the parking lot of Mound Marketplace, and I think that doesn't really argue that you can do it.
I mean, technically, you could put a building up.
Other than it's a PUD and the building is already, the parking lot's already at capacity otherwise. I mean, that's, those are the zoning things that make me,
So the reason why we're here in the first place is the state, and they're all great powers, decided that this was a good idea. They pushed it down, said we don't have local control anymore. And now we're sitting here, and again, in coordination with our attorney, we've said, if we do nothing and we just let this pass, and we pass through, now we're in August, how many can come in for,
Well,
has to do one.
no, let's back up a little bit. That's the retail side of it. The retail
Right.
side is not up and running what we're worried about is this manufacturing, which they can.
But July 27th or whatever.
Which is manufacturing, not retail.
Right, but how many, like, if we don't do anything tonight, we just let this skirt and just see what
then
happens?
we don't say where they can go and they could go.
Hypothetically, if we just say,
Yeah.
screw this, I don't want to even talk about it, how many could come?
As many as can, number one, get a license from the state, and two, can find space anywhere in the city.
Okay, so we could have 25, we could be like the
Well, you
weed
could have
capital.
25 applicants.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. So, so the idea,
So
right?
the point with what we're doing is we're trying to like, it sounds like we probably all agree that we want to like limit the power and let us have some of it back kind of by zoning this out and saying, well, you can do that one shop way over, over here and cross your fingers, nobody ever comes.
Yeah, remember, it's the private person
Right.
or company that owns that, we
Right.
still have to allow them in there.
I'm just saying, but
Yeah,
it's one.
right, and we can't, so we have to allow it somewhere.
Right.
May I make a clarification, though? On the manufacturing side, there's not a limit.
Right.
So there's not a numbers limit that you can establish.
So if we don't
However-
do anything, I mean, you could get
But
20
even if we do
applications.
something, technically, there's not a limit, but we are limiting where it can go, and we are limiting its so that's in essence how we're limiting it.
Right.
But technically, the retail, it's only the retail that has that limit.
The one-
Manufacturing
the
does
one
not have a
per-
limit,
the
but.
one
If you're
per
looking
12,000
like
pipe.
manufacturing and industrial, like you probably won't even know that they're there.
Well, and if you
If
even
we're just
find
focused on retail storefront, like,
Right.
optics of that.
And under the state statute, for manufacturing, they have regulations on odor and stuff like that, so there's some control that they put under their licensing and how they operate, and so, again, if there are issues with it, I believe the city has a process to go to Office Cannabis Management or a private person can, too. So, they heavily regulate the manufacturing, of it, and we have, like I said, you can't prohibit it, but we can deal with zoning.
So if we say, let's take a stand, let's be, no, we're not doing this at all, tough, go somewhere else. We're gonna get sued eventually, potentially, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe nothing happens. And at least we just,
Something will happen.
so let's just say whoever looks it up and says, oh, there's a good target, I'm gonna go, we're gonna go sue Mound because they're discriminating against this new thing.
Well,
Then we're in a lawsuit and this and that way.
I mean, this is similar to First Amendment advocates.
Right.
And when I talk about First Amendment, I'm talking about strip clubs, because that's
Yeah.
considered to have First Amendment protections. No, it does. It has First Amendment protections, and but you can control time, place, and manner. But there are First Amendment advocates that will scour through city codes and go, aha.
Found one.
Found
Go
one.
sue.
Yeah, and go, try to open one up and see what happens, and
Right.
then they got a lawsuit involved. I mean, it happens. So my advice is, when I'm looking at this, is follow, it's the statute's the statute, and this is what it says.
Right.
And, and do what I can to protect the city from liability.
Right. Okay, why don't you finish, then we'll open up to the public.
I think the biggest message is you have the maps in front of you.
Yep.
I assume at some point we'll have a conversation about whatever buffer you think is the most appropriate.
Yep.
We tried to give you different options. I do have with me ones that don't have the parks on it, because I think the 500 feet of parks is the maximum we can do, and probably, there are impacts with like the veterans next to the transit ramp, but otherwise, a lot of the difference has to do with the 1,000 feet and whether that restricts us too much or whether we need to dial it back. And that's really your comfort level on how we want to do that. I think staff's recommendation is to dial it back a little bit, even though it's uncomfortable, because in order to not have that lawsuit, which is, our best interest as the city attorneys is to protect the city's interests, is to find that kind of happy number that protects as much as you can without zoning it completely out, that someone could say, well, you zoned it out, there's no place for us to go. And we can go through the different maps.
Okay.
And otherwise, the ordinance is fairly straightforward, I hope, in terms of there are definitions, there's a use table, and it says that there's the buffers, and that's about as much as we're able to do. And that's why there's not more, is that there's a limit with statute on how much we're able to regulate with these. So, other questions, or do you want me to I can walk through the maps more. but
No, we'll come back to you.
I figured that's a discussion after.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Rita.
Yes.
All right, does somebody want to come up? You got 3 minutes. Just give us your, what's that?
Hi, Claudia
Yes.
Lacey, 2529 Commerce Boulevard, Mound, Minnesota. I wish,
Oh, sorry, hold on. What?
We need to open the public hearing first.
Oh, I just did that.
Oh, sorry.
Does it have to be like official?
Yes.
Oh,
It says this is a public hearing for the sake of zoning, so it needs to be an official public hearing.
okay, hold on. Okay, I opened the public hearing for the consideration of the proposed ordinance, Chapter 129 zoning related to cannabis business.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
thank you. Hi, I'm Claudia Lacey, 2529 Commerce Boulevard, Mound, Minnesota. I wish, okay, first of all, you're doing everything you can to make it easy on the people that want to come here and sell genetically modified, super strong marijuana. Why are you going out of your way to make it easy? And I guess respectfully, I totally respect your legal opinion, Mr. Landsman, but I spoke to several city attorneys today. I spent almost 3 hours talking to the League of Minnesota Cities, various other municipalities, and their lawyers. It's all in the zoning. Okay, you can't prohibit a cannabis shop from coming to Mound, but you can zone Mound to protect our citizens, our vulnerable. I don't want to smell weed at the beach and the parks, which if you go to Colorado, it's rampant, it's horrible. It ruins your experience. Walking around Manhattan, all you do is smell weed. Colorado, Boulder, all you do is smell weed. If your zoning matches Minneapolis, it's 1,000 feet. From parks, schools, vulnerable individuals, you don't have to go, oh, let's make it 500 and make it easier on everybody. You don't have to do that. And let me ask you this question to make it simple. Let's assume, because of our beautiful geography, and we've got lakes and parks, let's assume there isn't a single place in Mound that would allow a commercial space that is less than 300 feet. Are you going to lower it to that to accommodate them? What are you doing? We don't want to what is this world coming to? I bet, how many of you spent any time, do any of you even know who John Corey is? Do you know who John Corey is? I'm sorry, Robert Corey. Robert Corey, 10 years ago, was the architect of Amendment 64, legalizing the growing, selling, distribution of marijuana in Colorado. Liberal guy, went to the University of Colorado, then went to Stanford Law, came back, wrote this bill. He now, 10 years later, says, oh my God, I so wish I could be proud of this. I regret what I have done. It's big government cronyism. That's who's getting rich. It's not the little mom and pop with an organic marijuana farm. I am all about medicinal marijuana. I'm not saying I use it. I don't begrudge anyone that needs it for any purpose. But to put this highly genetically modified Frankenstein marijuana for sale on our beautiful Lake Langdon or anywhere around our town this makes Monsanto blush, the level of modification that's going into these new weed plants. And so don't sit back lightly and go, let's make it easy on them and give them let's let them have 500 feet. You're all confusing everyone out here when you say, you know what, we have to do this. No, you do not. You have to set your code, and then you can stick by your code. If there is nowhere for the business to go, then there's nowhere for it to go. You don't have to make it happen. And the city's not going to come after you. The city's not going to, the legislators in St. Paul are not going to come after you because you didn't find a place for a weed shop in Mound. I'm sure everyone here can drive, 5 miles down the road to get their genetically modified marijuana. Don't make it easy on them. Protect our kids. This is not what we want here. People used to fight to keep XXX and porn shops and all these things out of our town. Start fighting for us. That's all I have to say. I love this town. We don't need, again, the marijuana that God grows out in the field with natural sunshine, that's one thing. That is not what's coming into these shops. And you know who's getting rich? Big government and big corporations. Big government, big corporations. It's not the little guys. So, thank you. God bless you. Thank you for your service. I know how much work this is. But you do not have to zone it in to make it easy. You should know this. You should be protecting us. You know what people used to call Mound? Most of us need drugs. We want to get away from that. All right, thank you. Sorry about my passion. I tried to be calm, but it's because I'm passionate. And I do love, I so respect all of you for putting in this time, but man, you know, you do not have to zone this in. So, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you can give us your name and address.
Jason Zattler, 2345 Commerce Boulevard.
Louder, Jason.
Sorry. 2345 Commerce Boulevard, Jason Zattler. You're going to hear two different opinions, and I love Claudia dearly. But her and I definitely differ in some perspectives. First, I'm just going to highlight what I've done for extensive research in this industry, because I have to know it for insurance purposes, and it has turned our insurance world upside down. And I've talked to people from California, Colorado, you name it. I've been to more seminars than I care to admit. The long of the short is that our farm bill started with the Delta 8 and the Delta 9, and they passed that as part of our farm bill, and that was on the federal level, okay? And I go out there each year as well and talk with those folks. And then that's the derivative of THC or hemp, so things that they make with rope and all that. So that's where you get your gummies, your THC seltzers, all of these other things. Then you have big corporations that are in these various states that do the cultivation that Scott was talking about. These guys are big time. So these are in multiple states. They're big corporations, and as soon as another state opens up, they want to come into that state. The issue with our state right now is the cultivation issue, and we have rules and regulations around how much they can cultivate and where. And so these big time corporations don't want to come in and do the cultivation, because on the federal level, if you transport marijuana, true marijuana, over state lines, it's a federal crime and everybody goes to jail. So that's one thing I want you guys to understand here, is that when they're talking about cultivation, you know how many people are cultivators right now and they've sped up? 0. So do you think that the THC dispensaries that we're talking about here, and this, you guys are in an uproar about stuff that isn't going to happen for at least another year. Let me give you just some statistics here. Cannabis cultivators, the licenses in the state of Minnesota, 25. The cannabis manufacturers, 12. The cannabis retailers, we're talking about the dispensaries, 75. And the cannabis, those are the mixed businesses, another 50. So they can have a dispensary and they can cultivate. We have about 200 licenses that are going to be put out in circulation in the state of Minnesota. And of those licenses, about 100 are under this, idea that, hey, if you've been convicted of X, Y, and Z, you're going to be a good business steward from now on. And at this point, you can get a license. So it'd be about 100 licenses that get issued. The other 100, other people can apply for at that point. So that's just to give you some perspective. Right now, I'll give you another larger issue, and I think your larger concern is going to be around the insurance side of things and what that's going to do to the city and all these other pieces. So, and they're dealing with all of this in the other states. So let's talk about liquor stores. Liquor stores are handling your THC seltzers, they're handling your gummies, all these other things, and then they're also, you can get them at the restaurants, you can get them at, and where you can get alcohol as well. So you get all of these things, and when someone gets into an accident, what is it? Is it the THC that got you into the accident, or is the alcohol that got you into the accident? Is it the cookie you ate, or the gummy that you ate? So these are much larger scope issues that all these other states are dealing with. So what we're talking about is very minuscule in the grand scheme of things. So I'm trying to give you guys some perspective on this. I understand the zoning. I see the passion in this room, I see some of the passion up on the council. But I think, when I think about regulation, and I think about you as stewards of our city and also citizens, there's got to be a little more forethought into just, rather than let's just put something on the books. Because when I look at this, I mean, buffer zones, all these other things, none of this means anything right now, and it won't probably for another 2 years. Because you ain't going to get any cultivators to come in here to actually even supply the cannabis retailers. Not going to happen. There ain't nothing to buy, and you can't cross it over the state line. So my point is that I would recommend that you guys let some of this dust settle. Wait for your rules that are going to come from the state legislature, rather than adopting what the city attorney folks adopted, because I think people are doing this in their haste because of their hatred of marijuana. The reality is if you don't let something in, guess what you can do? I can grow right now, today, 8 plants in my house. Did you know that? 8. 4 of them flowering, and I can grow them any way I want, hydroponically or anywhere else. In my backyard. Right next to the school, guys. You can't stop it. So we're having arguments about something you can't stop. So wouldn't you rather have it regulated in our city, where you have to show up in a dispensary? Do you know the rules around a dispensary right now? You can only have 10% of your product out. The rest has got to be in a safe. You have to have locked security doors, cameras, all these rules and regulations. And by the way, the license, just to apply for a license for a dispensary, do you know how much that is? Just for the license. You're not guaranteed that you're going to get the license. $5,000, and it'll probably go up from there. So this isn't for your everyday run-of-the-mill people or business, because there are so much rules and regulations that haven't even been established yet. And we have attorneys' offices and other people, city folks, that are applying rules that they know nothing about. So what I'm saying is you really need to take a step back and consider what you're doing. Because when I look at this, let's just talk about the buffer zone for a second. Do we have buffer zones for liquor stores? Did you know there was a liquor store right over here, right next to Shirley Hills at one point? We don't have any problem with that. Did you know that there's no security cameras in most cases? There's no, none of the product is locked behind doors or behind cases. So you can't even get to it anyways at a dispensary versus a liquor store. The little kids right over at the game machine could walk right into a liquor store and grab something and you wouldn't even know it if they're quick enough. So be thoughtful about what you guys are going to do rather than just quick, let's put something on the books. Same with gun stores. Gun stores are more regulated than liquor stores. There's no buffer zone on gun stores. Why are we doing that for our cannabis? Smoke shops, the wonderful smoke shop that we got up here. Have you been in there? Have you seen all the cannabis stuff and all the other things that they have in there? You can't walk in and grab anything because guess what? It's all behind cases and it's all security gated. We're not having a conversation about a buffer zone there. I can promise you, if you've ever been in a dispensary, and I have, just to see what it looks like and how it operates, it is such high security, and most of them have security guards too. Did you know that? So when we're talking about a buffer zone, the zone regulation, I think we're really truly jumping the gun here, and really need to take a step back and really consider what other rules are going to be forthcoming that we don't know about yet from the state legislature. Because I know that they're copying some of the stuff that came from Colorado and California as an example. And it's not all written. They're trying to do it better than the rest of them. And Claudia is absolutely right. I have family down in Colorado, and it's pretty bad. But there's nothing that you're not going to stop it. So my point is You're better off regulating it and having the dispensaries and having the people that are there to regulate it, and they're monitored by the government big time, rather than, hey, you know what, we're not going to do any dispensaries, or we might just do one here. You know what they do today? It's black market. They grow their stuff anyways. You're not gonna take that away. So either you deal with it in an orderly manner, or you just let everybody grow out here, no matter where they grow.
All right,
That's all I
thanks,
gotta
Jerry.
say.
Thanks. All right, next up, can you give us your name and address?
Yeah, Tom Zuccaro, 4760 Bedford Road. I grew up in Mound, was born in '62, I left in '81, joined the military, and I just moved back in the fall. I've been away from home for a very long time. I love this town. It was the best move I made moving back here. I'm grateful every day, except for this. I find this disgusting. I love this town. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's not a vice. It's still a vice, and it's still very dangerous. Addiction can plague any one of you, anybody's family, and destroy it. So legalizing this stuff and making it available is not a good thing in my book. I'm missing 2 siblings due to this. So any time that you guys can stand up and muster the courage to say no, not in this town, or at least make it as difficult as possible, then you're doing your job. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give us your name and address.
Isabel Brandt, 3367 Warner Lane. I just have a couple of rebuttals,
Yeah.
I suppose. The acronym "Most of Us Need Drugs" is alive today. Many people use it to reference this town. A little bit about me: I also grew up in Mound. I graduated from Mount Westonka High School in 2016, and then I graduated from the University of Minnesota in 2020. And I had to move back due to the economy, I suppose. I need drugs. FDA approved. Like, I think the conversation around addiction and mental illness go hand in hand. I've attended numerous funerals for friends that have overdosed that I went to Mound with. So I think I have a really valuable point of view of what dispensaries would look like in Mound. I think it would be a positive thing. I don't think it would necessarily mean it's coming from cartels in Mexico. I think it could easily come from alumni from Mound. I have very close friends that have gone to college for food and drug administration. I do want to ask if anyone here knows what harm reduction means. Anyone?
Harm reduction.
It's a term. It's kind of a movement, actually. Harm reduction is, I don't really know a lot about it off the top of my head, but I know it's something that a lot of really big Minnesota-named famous people advocate for, and it's something that's going to go hand in hand as drugs, pop up in society. So harm reduction is a proven way to reduce people overdosing or getting addicted or going down the bad path of addiction. Yeah, that's all I want to say. But I definitely think my generation of people would have a lot to say about this topic. And yeah, I'm open to talking about it more.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Anybody else? All right. Give us your name and address.
Hi, everybody. My name's Charlie Lacey. It's 6117 Beechwood Road. Howdy, neighbor.
Oh, hey, Beechwood, yeah.
Being from her generation as well, I actually take the alternative stance that there are, and there definitely is a mental health, depression, multiple different mental health issues that are starting to surface more and more, especially in people our age. I think one thing people take for granted is the fact that basic diet, exercise, and getting out of the house, especially with COVID having being a thing and people got stuck. That is a remedy for a lot of issues that people are facing, and a lot of those issues are being handled by the substitution of using drugs, smoking weed, painkillers, a lot of other things like that. We all know these things have or cause problems, health problems specifically. I mean, no one in their right mind can tell you that smoking weed is good for you outside of the fact that it gives, a little bit of mental and potential pain relief. The example I'm using is specifically for cancer patients. My grandmother, whose house I now live in, who passed away 12 years ago, died of lung cancer, and she would be the first one to tell any of us that there's nothing you can smoke on this planet that is good for you. It may have specific effects that, relieve pain or, help you escape a sad, depressed state that you might be in, but there's no reason that we need to actively open our arms to something like this in this community. I mean, I grew up here as well. I didn't graduate from Mound High School, but I lived in the Mound area. All my best friends went to Mound. I wanted to go to Mound. I ended up going to college out of state, and I just moved back because all my friends and family are here. I do think that taking a conservative approach in terms of putting in a regulation now versus, and that's a fair argument, wait and see what the state decides to do. The state can make its own, structures or policies or whatever it needs to. That's not to say that we can't change ours in the future. I'm just saying right now we should probably take a conservative stance in the sense that we don't want anything rushing in that we then will have to fight to get out. I would say use the Minneapolis current standard of 1,000 feet for parks, schools, anything like that, or any city, municipality. Keep this out of the reach of, obviously you have to be 21 plus to buy weed, but there are other ways around it. As was said earlier, black market, all that stuff, people can grow it themselves. I'd personally rather have someone growing weed in their backyard than having to have a, dispensary on our main street here in Mound. I mean, there are really 3 cities that are on Lake Minnetonka here that have, something to offer the citizens who all live on and around the lake. Wayzata, it's just beautiful. They're very, very stringent with, what businesses they let in. They're considered a high-class neighborhood in Minnesota. They're considered one of the best neighborhoods in the country. Excelsior, same thing. They're very picky with what goes in there. Their regulations are very tight. I highly doubt we're going to see a dispensary popping up in either of those in the next 2 years. Like, Mound potentially has the single greatest landmark in Surfside Beach, in Mound, a city with almost nothing outside of the beach to offer on the most beautiful lake in the country. The last thing we want to do is take that beach and, 500 feet off the beach, have a dispensary that does nothing good for our community. I mean, I feel like I've said enough and I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Another point of view from our generation. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. Anybody else want to talk? Can you give us your name and address?
Mary Davis, 3021 Inverness Lane. I like your point, Jason, to wait and see what they're doing, but I also think that we need to protect ourselves in the interim. And my question is, if we were to come up, let's say we followed what Minneapolis did, can we retract it? If we found out that it was not suitable?
I mean, can we amend our zoning ordinance?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have the words.
Oh, the answer is, zoning ordinances can be amended.
Yes.
So, I mean, it would be kind of a wait and see, but let's protect ourselves while we're at it. And my biggest concern, like right now, I walk around the neighborhood, I know who's growing pot in their house. I smell it all day long. My neighbors have been growing it for years. So they basically could have been one of those first people that could have been busted first and now could sell it. I understand the predicament better today, that you guys are under kind of a crunch because of what's coming up. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you listening to us, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mary.
Can I leave with, I'm going to leave with one last thought.
Real quick, give us your name and address.
This is just related to this is Jason, 2345 Commerce Boulevard. And I'll give you this thought to think about as you guys chew on all of this, but there's marijuana that you can buy today, right? That's not available in a dispensary that someone either is grown or has gotten from somebody, right? And that marijuana oftentimes can be laced with fentanyl, and the kids are dying from it right now. So just think about that for a second. There's other stuff that they lace marijuana with these days that it never used to be that way, and it is today. So the regulation with these dispensaries, I think, is all that more important for our youthful kids and adults for that matter, because otherwise they're going to buy it. They're going to buy it here anyways. They're going to buy it somewhere, and who knows if it's laced with fentanyl or something else that's worse. That's what I'll leave you with.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else want to come up? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the meeting there. Rita, are you going to come back up? Any thoughts from council?
Yeah. I mean,
You want to hear her first?
yeah.
So I guess, again, the reason why we're talking about this in the first place is if we don't do anything, then, was it July 27th?
Well, it's, yeah, after, it's like the end of July, then they may start issuing licenses for manufacturers.
Right, so hypothetically, anything could turn into a big cultivating plant in Mound.
Right, and the thing about zoning too is that zoning, you kind of think of the things that can happen. It may not happen, but you
Right.
prepare for it.
So basically, by doing this in the first place, we're trying to restrict the access in Mound as it is, with maybe one potential business coming.
Correct. I mean, we're allowed to narrow it down. I mean, again, the way the statute says is that it says you can restrict on time, place, and manner of operation of cannabis businesses, but it even says as long as the restrictions do not prohibit.
Okay,
So-
so if we put in 1,000 from parks and schools and whatnot, like Minneapolis does, would we still have enough
Just-
where one person could?
Just
have
to
a spot?
Well, I'll
clarify.
let Rita answer that one.
Well, I mean, one clarification is, state statute specifically says 1,000 feet for public or private schools,
Yeah,
500 feet for parks. So I don't, if Minneapolis did it, I don't know how they did it, because that's statute, is 1,000 feet and 500 feet. And that's the max we can do.
okay.
So I know there was references, and I actually was trying to find.
So we're already at the max of 1,000 and 500.
Yes, and our only concern, happy to do it, the only concern is by doing 1,000 is we may be creating such a buffer that someone would have the opportunity to sue the city and say, you've made it so I can't operate, because there's nothing left. I think there's one possible place, but otherwise, that's our only concern, is where is that right number to give us the right amount of maximizing your ability and reducing the ability for someone to come in and say we did too much.
So do you have the 1,500 chart? So we can just,
Yes.
I got like 15 of them, they don't say which ones are
Well, they
which.
say it right up here.
On the zoning, on the legend, on the side,
There's 500 and 1,000.
Oh,
so,
that's
and-
the one you got up here?
yes,
That's the maximum.
that's the maximum, and that one, you know,
So hypothetically, old Tonka toy, you could,
Some of Balboa is available.
well, I just closed the public meeting. So, yeah,
I'm sorry, the public hearing.
public hearing, yeah.
So the public meeting's closed.
Do you want to say something real quick?
I sure do.
Okay, why don't you come up real fast? Just give us your name and address.
Pardon me?
Come up to the microphone
Yeah.
and give us your name and address real fast.
Yeah, I'm Pat Furlong. I live over on Edgewater Drive.
Okay,
I came to Mound in 1966 to teach school. I taught here for 40 years. I coached hockey here for 40 years. And I fought for years and really am tired of the number of people that would talk about other communities, our neighbors, you know, and I won't mention their names, but our neighbors, as being better than Mound. And I would say to my students and I would say to my players, nonsense. And I would name names of the teachers and the coaches in Mound. And I don't think you can get better people than what we had in Mound as far as the number of teachers and the number of coaches. And now we're talking about this doggone marijuana situation. I don't drink and I don't smoke. Part of it's because I'm too cheap, okay, and I don't mind saying that, and I said it to my students for years and years and years. But now we're talking about allowing that to come into our community, when in fact some of our neighboring communities are going to say no, but yet we're going to allow it to come in. Now, I'm not as smart as this guy, that's for doggone sure, because he's an attorney, and I know how smart you got to be an attorney. And I can't compete with him. But I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And what's right is that we do everything on this community to keep that damn marijuana out of here. I can guarantee you the years that I taught and coached and what a job it was to get kids to not use alcohol and not use drugs so they can play with a clear mind and come to school with a clear mind. So don't tell me you don't know what you're talking about, because I do know what I'm talking about. I didn't spend 40 years in Mound teaching and coaching. And I know what it takes to be a good human being and to be a stand-up human being and go to your job every day. And marijuana is not going to help us. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Amen, Coach Furlong.
Okay, you want to come back up?
Coached everybody's kids. Was he hockey?
Yeah.
So the big purple, that's just the whole district?
Just a second, I'm gonna, this,
The 1-1 industrial?
this one.
Yeah.
That is the one industrial, correct.
And this is, again, what you said with the 1,500.
1,000.
There's no other way to
Well,
draw
they could
this.
still go to the parking lot, like you said, they could plop up something in the parking lot at Jubilee. If you look up,
Up here?
yeah,
Well, I
the
mean,
center of Jubilee's.
but remember, this is industrial, we're putting manufacturing in industrial, and that's not
Yeah.
industrial. So even if that
Oh,
was.
we're only talking
right,
industrial
we're-
right now.
Yeah, because even if that was a possibility, and they're a PUD, and even if they could do something in the parking lot, they're apparently at maximum capacity with parking, so
I think
it's.
they're close if they're not at it.
Yeah, so they're not getting another outbuilding.
The idea of another building is slim. I mean, I
There's no place
suppose
for
we
it.
can make a change. but
Yeah, and I don't think.
I
our-
mean,
Right, but remember, that's the retail side of it, this is manufacturing, and we're looking at,
So on
really,
the-
correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at manufacturing in the industrial area.
right, so the question is, if we do 1,000 feet, is, that fairly, to me, I think it looks like it goes across all of the main part of the Balboa building. So is that going to withstand the test? Right in here.
Jason, just go over all the Balboa building. Here.
I mean, on the other, this is
Well,
a street,
that's the
right?
storage on the other side.
Yeah, well,
Right.
they could
They
build
could-
the whole
they
thing
could-
in there.
Yeah, right in the trail.
Well,
Well,
and that's
anyway,
right next to the West Tonka
Yeah,
hockey.
Right,
rink.
yeah.
So that, I mean, that's, I don't like that, right? You guys like that?
Well, I don't like any of it.
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm in favor of maximum borders, and I'm not, or buffers, 1,000 and 500, and I'm still concerned, and this is where I may be confused. If we can only do 500 buffers for parks,
500 is the maximum for
okay.
parks.
And that still leaves a vulnerable area right where Dwayne 66 used to be.
We also,
So
I mean,
if
the other,
Can I
you were
just ask
talking?
a question, Rita? If the two circles don't completely overlap, and there's a sliver on a piece of property, do they still have the ability to do something?
So are we talking in this area? On
talking down
Commerce? By Surfside.
Down by Surfside.
I mean, one option is to not allow it on the mixed-use corridor area, that big blue area. I mean, that,
Oh, okay.
again, that's
Yeah.
why I started with the premise of, if we agree on the districts that are appropriate, then we decide on the buffers next. And those are the districts that were.
That's great to know, because.
So if Surfside is a concern, and I know the planning commission
It
brought
is.
it up, then that could get removed and it only goes to the mixed-use downtown area.
Oh, that's a whole new ballgame.
That's all different.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we're only talking, as I understand it right now, we're not talking about retail. We're talking about.
Well,
Okay.
hold on. So the only thing that's allowed early will be cultivation, which will be in the purple part.
Okay,
But because we're dealing with zoning on this, we might as well look at it as a whole for the whole business, so we can put this in place and not have to come back to it again.
Right.
And so that's why the discussion comes up with, when we're dealing with the blue, mixed-use areas, that's the retail part. Okay? So, and I think what Rhea's saying is that, let's look at what zones are appropriate. We don't have to have the blue.
Meaning the mixed-use corridor.
Yes, the mixed-use corridor, you can keep it up into the retail part of, that's, where the.
It's, or you can
Mixed-use
just
downtown.
do the blue, and maybe I apologize if that wasn't communicated of, you have to choose the districts, and then we talk about the buffers.
And maybe,
So if we did mixed use
Downtown is the,
downtown and mixed use commercial, that's what I would vote for. Jason, can I look at that really quick for a minute? I'll give it right back. Here, I'll give you yours. I'll get it for you.
I can get it for it. It may not be
Okay,
quick.
so that's still with
There it is, that's the maximum.
where are they gonna cultivate them? In that industrial area?
I'm just
In
I'm
trailers?
just-
Those
I'm just
hydroponic
for
trailers?
maximum buffers, period. And I do really like the idea of not even putting the mixed-use commercial part of the mix.
Just to make sure it's corridor.
Because I am concerned about Surfside Park.
yes, MUC. Can we just say MUC, because that way it doesn't matter what
Okay.
the actual
Should
title
I
is.
recuse myself because I have property?
That would be an attorney question, not
Should I
myself.
General zoning like this doesn't.
I don't
impact
have to
you.
recuse
No.
myself in general, so, okay.
You're totally covered up in everything, all the
Okay.
buffer zones.
Okay, so just so I understand, I'm sorry, Mr. Lansing, are we only talking about zoning and an ordinance for manufacturing and cultivating of marijuana?
I will say, that is what spurred this whole discussion.
Okay,
But what we are looking at, as opposed to trying to piecemeal the zoning ordinance, so today we deal with this, then we deal with that, we're looking at the whole thing. So this does deal with all types of cannabis-related businesses, both the retail and the manufacturing
Okay.
and the growing.
okay, can we say, let's get around these circles and kind of get, that's very confusing. Can we just say, we're only gonna allow it at the Jubilee Shopping Center, or something? We can't do that.
You have to use the buffers too.
Well,
There would
has to
be
be
one
MUD
type
then.
of zone.
It would be MUD, and then we could zone out the rest.
Say that again?
MUD,
It's a
Right.
mixed-use district.
right,
which
that's
is
all that
downtown.
green.
Just the blue.
Yeah,
No, D.
The tealish color.
D is the green.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's,
Oh, that's green.
but that's a lot. That's a whole lot of
But
stuff.
the buffers do take most of that
No, but
away,
the buffers
Oh.
take all of it.
right? I mean, if you look at the buffer,
No, I'm saying if you only allow it, so let's just say we take out the purple
This.
zone, 1-1.
this one,
No, 1-1 industrial. Say
where
we
would
ta-
you put the cultivation then? The I-1?
Well, I'm just saying, can't you take out 1-1?
The I-1? Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the industrial district.
Yeah,
You
take-
can,
Take that out.
but then the cultivation is going to need to be allowed someplace in the city.
Yeah, do it
In
in
the
Harbor Wine
downtown?
and Spirits. We'll never let it happen.
No,
But there's a little sliver for Harbor, right? I mean, can't you just?
do we have to
but that's
decide
not
this
for
tonight?
cultivated.
Well-
You don't want to cultivate it
Do
there.
we have to
It's
decide
not
this
big enough
tonight?
anyway.
I'm just saying, yes, you can cultivate it there.
It's
In other words,
concrete.
it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But we're allowing it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, by the way, we own this building, so good luck. Have
Yeah.
to try to find, to cultivate
Well,
that.
if you did the 1,000 foot
that-
and 500, oh, no, that takes.
There's too
up-
many conversations, I'm
Yeah,
not
maybe
sure.
just, what,
So I'm having a trouble knowing which one to address.
All right,
and
so
I
let's just say,
apologize.
if we look at MUD only,
That's the
this-
greenish.
This one here.
Yeah, so just, yeah, circle
Right
right
in
by
here.
where Jubilee is.
And then down here.
Yeah, so can't we just buffer the heck out of that with the rest of the circles? And then say, now that little piece is open, basically it's Jubilee and Harbor. I think it takes out like Casa Amiga and
Well,
it takes out that whole
takes
strip
out-
mall.
It takes out the liquor store too.
It takes out,
it takes out the liquor store.
Yeah.
too, I
oh,
think.
so it's basically,
It's halfway through Jubilee.
yeah, so can't we just say, well, that's your opportunity right there?
They could do it, it
So-
looks like part of the vet.
And the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong. You can do whatever you would like. The
Yeah.
responses you're hearing from the city attorney and myself are, this is what you're opening yourself up to in
Yeah.
terms of a lawsuit. So we're not saying you can't do these things. It's how comfortable are you about protecting yourself from the lawsuit, which is where our jobs are, is to say, you can do this, but if you only have half of Mound Marketplace and someone came and we said, great, you can be in the parking lot of Mound Marketplace, maybe the vet building in Jubilee, is that going to withstand a court case? And that's fine. I can't answer that. I don't think the city attorney can, but that's what we're just
None of
trying
us
to
know.
offer.
Yeah.
Whatever your comfort
Yeah,
level is.
I mean, what we've told you is that you can use zoning and you have maximum buffers, that's all you can do. You know, we're trying to find that, some balance so that, and you can't prohibit the operation through zoning. So the question is, which we can't answer, is if you did the maximum buffers and had it into that one zone, would that prohibit the establishment? It may be a case-by-case analysis. If it comes up, it may be something we have to address.
Okay, well, I guess I would say, can we do that and then get rid of the purple? Just-
So does that, just to confirm what I'm hearing, all cannabis businesses, any type in the community, would only be allowed in the mixed-use D downtown district?
Yep.
Which is like Mound Marketplace, Commerce Place, Stonegate,
But
that area.
with
And
the
then
buffers.
What?
But with the buffers.
And then add the buffers.
Yeah.
But all businesses, that would be where they would be. So
Yeah.
the use table would change
Yeah.
to just list the MUD and everything else would be prohibited. And the city attorney's doing this, so I assume he's looking.
Well, I'm
at
looking
it.
at the
Yeah.
chart.
So, but you're taking out purple and you're taking out blue, which is basically the whole strip all the way down to
Yes, I
Surfside.
can use my cursor. So this would go away,
Yep,
this
That
would
goes
go
away.
away, and this would go away.
yeah.
So all that's left is this area.
But that's all covered by the buffer, so you can't do it
No, we
anyway.
got half of it. See,
So the only
we've
thing,
got-
I can't see very
Yeah,
well, but my
area
guess is
and
we're
that
only
area.
talking,
That's it,
is
yeah.
this the only part
So that's
left?
perfect.
That's, yeah, I like that.
So,
Yes, okay, this is the only part left.
and if you take a look at the chart on page 1644 of the agenda, the cannabis is different than the low potency. Right now, in our licensing system, we allow the low potency, and I think we allow it as it is as we're proposing it here. We allow it in the MUD and MUC right now, I believe. So I'm assuming we want it, and low potency is different. It's the, it's the drinks and the 5 milligram gummies, and those aren't changing at all through the statute. Do we want to, I guess my question would be, we understand what you want to do with cannabis, or that's the consensus at least that we're hearing. Do you want to keep the low potency the way it is today?
Can we change it to this too, or no?
You can, I think you can do whatever you want.
The low potency is what we sell at.
Well, it's what you do right now, and you did allow it through city licensing.
Yeah.
In those zoning districts, so you can make it. The statute differentiates between low potency and cannabis. So you can still have that, differentiate that if you want. It would impact the current, and I don't think we have any licenses that were issued. Or do we do? Yeah.
Smoke shop.
Yeah, and I don't know how
And
that's
liquor
located
store.
with the buffers.
So two total.
It's taken over by the buffers, it's right here.
Sell tons of them.
It's in this strip right
So if we did that, then that would, they wouldn't be able to sell it.
Right, but, let me see the statute real quick, hold on. The buffers, it's cannabis retailers, cannabis mezzo businesses, retail operations. I don't know if those, I don't have the definition, maybe Rita, maybe you do. Is a low potency in I don't think that's a cannabis retailer. I don't think it's in the definition of what would be subject to the buffers.
I thought those were treated separately.
I think they are, because they just were really dealing with this high-potency cannabis.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
The language, we're just dealing with cannabis, not hemp-derived THC.
Right, and so, so I think the low potency, if we put those buffers in, and, I mean, the low potency doesn't have the same restrictions or limitations, I guess.
So that could stay the same even with the buffers?
The buffers wouldn't apply.
Okay.
At least that's how it's drafted, and that's how the statute says. Does that sound?
Yeah.
We-
I just want
we-
to clarify, though, I don't think they're technically in the code currently, but this ordinance establishes them in the code.
Yeah, we had, what we did is that we had the licensing system that said this is where you can get a license.
Right, but we never had the zoning that said
Correct.
it. So
So
this
big-
is marrying them.
Right, so what we're doing is bringing the zoning code up to what our regulations with regard to licensing said. There was a rationale for doing it that way, but now that we're dealing with zoning, we're just kind of cleaning things up. So this would mirror how we're operating right now. So the smoke shop.
It wouldn't prohibit the smoke shop
No.
from THC?
Or if, I remember at one point there was like a holistic healing place that maybe wanted to do it, it wouldn't, if as long as it's within that zone, it wouldn't prohibit it.
But they still
Tobacco
cannot-
shops can't sell sell
can't?
cannabis either.
Who can't?
Tobacco shops won't be selling cannabis.
No.
Just the THC, which they're
Just
doing
tobacco
now.
and THC.
No, cannabis has to be done by a dispensary.
Right.
I mean, when we're talking cannabis, we're talking the high potency stuff, so or there's these mezzo businesses where it's kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like they grow, maybe it's a place where, you've seen the place where you can go cook your own steak, I think it's kind of like that kind of thing, it's like it's a little bit more than just a retail place, but it still has a retail component to it. But remember, that's one for 12,500. So, I mean, obviously it takes the vote of the council, but I think what we're hearing is discussion on the zone, the buffer, and then we've just informed you about the low potency, that it just mirrors what we already have.
All right, so does council agree with doing only the green area, which is MUD, mixed use, but then putting the 500 and 1,000 buffer into it? You do?
Is she talking?
Okay. No,
Are we
we're
still
making a
waiting?
decision.
Okay. Okay, can you recap for me again, because I was more amenable to the 500-foot buffer for public and private schools.
So basically, all we're saying is,
This one.
on the right side, the zoning, we're only, all those will disappear, and we're only gonna say you can only do MUD, which is the green area.
All the green area?
Well, but then add the 1,000 and the 500 buffer. So basically, if you have this, here, take this one. So here's basically that's the area they can be.
Right there.
I don't know. I'm not really in favor of that. I'm probably disagreeing with most people, but I'm more concerned with most people that were here speaking tonight too. It's like we're concerned with what we think we're gonna end up seeing and hearing and what we're gonna be dealing with every day. And we're not talking about, we're mostly just thinking about retail, not, even though we're talking about cultivation and manufacturing and all that stuff. So I'm equally as concerned with the buffer as I am with the cap, which I know we're not talking about the cap tonight, the one for every 12,500. But I land more on this one where it's just the blue, 500 feet from schools. And then when we get to the cap, having one right here, so whether it's in the green area or one in the purple area.
You don't care where it is, you just want one.
500-foot buffer
So
from schools.
that is in the definition for a cannabis business retail limit. It says shall be limited to one business per 12,500 residents. So this ordinance
But-
does do this.
Okay,
We're
okay.
doing that
But
with-
cities can say we want to allow more than one, which, the concern here tonight was, we don't want
Right,
9 retail shops, which is
right.
not
But
gonna
right now,
happen.
the ordinance is one. That's with the
Right.
retail limit being established. So
And-
you would have to actively change it to
Okay.
increase that number.
And prior to the retail licenses actually going into effect, then we'll revisit the non-zoning part of it and address the registration. And so there is how we'll, and so what happens in that is a license will be preliminarily issued by the state, sent down to the city. They have, then the applicant has to register with the city, and then there's a review, and if it doesn't fit the zoning, and we already have one, then it goes back up to the state and they're not allowed.
And for me, I mean, looking at, as someone who's cultivating wants a lot of space, and this is really expensive space. You know, like I see the 500 foot makes me happy, knowing that the cap is 1 for retail. And then if they're gonna be, you know, cultivating or manufacturing, it's still only in, can't name them all, but still only in that area. That's just my opinion.
So basically, I think what the consensus is that we're trying to make it the most restrictive possible with allowing that one to come in if they have to. You know, I think if we do this and it stands, then it's probably not gonna have anybody.
And it doesn't, and it should state too that regardless of the zoning of the retail and the manufacturing, it doesn't impact the usage. You know, so like you said, is that people can for personal use can grow up to 8 plants on their own personal property.
Yeah.
You can if you're over 21, you can buy and use similar to alcohol. So it's not going to change that aspect of it. This is just strictly looking at where businesses can be located.
So I'm looking at what the planning commission ended up kind of coming to a non-unanimous conclusion on the 8-1 of the 500 foot buffer from schools, and that's it.
No, so we're looking at this exact thing, just
Okay.
take out all the different zonings on the right side there. You know, residential, the blue, the purple.
So help me out here, which exact one are you looking at? 'Cause I have it in front of me. I just-
Only the green.
The 1,000 public-private school buffer, and then the 500 park. But then Mayor Holt suggested getting rid of this area, the blue area, and the purple area, and only allowing it in this green area, which would be mud, right?
MUD,
MUD.
mud.
So it's the most restrictive
Okay.
possible at this point. Right.
It puts the pressure on the
It's the
owner
most,
of
it's
that
the
Yeah,
most you
I
can
don't know. I'm not for that.
because they're the only
but
location
I'm probably
that
alone.
people could rent, so
It's only half, yeah, it's only half that spot.
it's the most expensive rental property downtown anyway.
It's basically Jubilee and the vet clinic. And it might be the hockey
And a
place,
little corner of the pond,
the pond, yeah,
out in the front
and
corner.
a lot of parking lot.
Well,
So,
is it the pond, no, it's not owned by the school, is it?
yeah, I think it includes half, you know, a quarter of it. So if it shaves right in half, you can't do it, right? You can't be like, well, I'm gonna do it on this side of the building.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, again, some of this will be kind of case by case as it comes in.
Okay. Well, again, I say that I would do this. Use only MUD, mixed use, the green one, and then do the buffer of 1,000 public and private schools and 500 on the public park or daycare.
I hear you. So what that will change to the amendment before you is a change to the definitions for the buffer, changing the allowable uses table down to just the MUD. For all of the cannabis and medical cannabis, I believe we discussed the lower potency staying how it is. So that would still allow that one in other districts to mirror what's in the city's registration system. Does that sound right? So that's
Yep.
1644, that's what page I'm on.
And there was somebody raising their hand.
Well, I mean, we're closed again.
And then, under the cannabis business, the regulations, we would remove any reference to the industrial district or the MUC district.
Yeah. So how should we make a motion for that?
Well, you can make make a motion to adopt with those changes.
Okay.
I mean, and then, I'm sure Kevin, with the help of Rita, can capture those changes that we're talking about. Right,
Right,
Kevin?
Councilmember Mackey, you want to try it?
Sure.
And the motion is on page
1642 is the
1642.
ordinance.
So let me say one thing. Maybe what to say is that motion to adopt with moving all cannabis businesses to the MUD.
So this is really making it restrictive to like that one building.
And-
One district, yes.
Yeah.
One
And-
district.
so MUD and with maximum buffers allowed under statute.
Yep.
So I'll help you along.
Okay, so I make a motion
property
to
owner can come to us and
move
say-
all cannabis,
What, motion to,
Adopt ordinance.
adopt, see, I can't find that
right
page.
here,
What
just say
page
this.
is that?
Just say motion to
A
adopt,
motion to adopt ordinance
amending.
amending chapter 129 of the Mound City Code regarding zoning related to cannabis business. And we'd like to move that to the MUD mixed-use district with 1,000-foot buffers around public and private schools and 500 feet buffers around public park and daycares.
So, just to clarify the motion, if I may. Motion to adopt the ordinance as written, moving all cannabis businesses to the MUD and providing for maximum buffers as allowed by state statute. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, and those are the adjustments that I had noted. And then, yes,
yeah.
I won't say more because you're in the middle of a motion.
All right, so I got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
You made the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
Second,
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
yes.
Yeah.
I had 3 telephone calls today with the City of Orono, City of Spring Park, and the City of Minnetrista. Minnetrista currently, this is what I heard 3 hours ago, Minnetrista is still under a moratorium. They haven't done anything yet. Orono is still, has their moratorium out there. They haven't done anything yet. Spring Park decided just not to fool with moratoriums, and they're just doing what the state is telling them to do. The 7 people that I counted up here at the podium, I believe 3 of them are Minnetrista residents. They pay taxes in Minnetrista. 4 of them are Mound residents. They pay taxes here. The majority of the people, well, the people from Mound are saying they don't want this. So I think we're doing the best job that we possibly can do to keep our residents that are coming here. Minnetrista people perhaps should go to Minnetrista and see what they're doing with their marijuana laws. I'm done.
I have a question. What was the moratorium like exactly that they had?
They just said they have the moratorium, which I think was,
No cannabis.
I don't.
No,
I
no
think that's what we
zoning?
did.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what we
that's,
did.
it's a little bit different under, once they pass the new laws, you're allowed to have a moratorium up on cannabis businesses to the end of the year, I think the end of this year. But and then you still have, but it's, that's, the thing is that it's July, I mean, it's coming. I mean, but whether you're doing here, you're not, I mean, it's limited. As you said, manufacturing is going to require a large space.
So the moratoriums that I'm aware of were done in places particularly where they were concerned that cultivation was more of a possibility because of the nature of the community. They are, most of those communities are talking about it right now and working towards having it. Everybody was hoping that the model ordinance would be available to do that, and that was one of the big reasons to do the moratorium, is to let the Office of Cannabis Management kind of create this, and because of the change of the state legislature, that's why we needed to move faster. Otherwise, we would have looked at it in the same time frame as everyone else, but this forced us to do it a little bit sooner. And we can, if something happens with that model ordinance that is a benefit to you, we certainly will bring it back and make an adjustment to the code. This doesn't have to be the end, but this does put the best protections, and that's all we're looking for, is for you to be able to have those protections that you want in place.
And I may say too, remember there's this, we're dealing with the manufacturing part, but we're looking at it as a whole at this point. There's no, you can't get a retail license right now. The legislature is done, so that's not going to change. One of the things that the model ordinance is supposedly supposed to cover will be the registration part. So this will be coming back at a certain point, and it would be, and we're hoping to get model ordinances. If not, some cities have already adopted it, because they adopted the registration and the zoning prior to even knowing what the legislature was gonna do, because they saw everything coming down, and they were like, we gotta get on this. So I took, mostly took, looking at it is that I knew that there could be time to, like we are right now, to work within a window to get something adopted. And I said too, the league is recommending adopting some form of zoning ordinance. So hopefully that helps.
So one last comment. We, all of us have to do what we think residents want us to do, right? I mean, that's why we're here, whether they show up or not. However many show up from our town or the West Tonka area. We get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Again, this is something that in the spring, remember, we had Representative Myers, I remember, reaching out to us and saying, is this what you guys want? I think he reached out to all of us and said, hey, you guys are going to lose local control. Is that something you want? That's where we need to fight as a council here, but also up a level or two. We need to fight at the state to make sure that we're being heard locally, and they're at the state stripping that away from us. And there's, it is what it is, but remember that in November. So we're doing what we can to make this most restrictive. Whatever happens, happens. But unfortunately, sorry, we don't want it in our town. You can go to the next town over or the next one after that, and I'm sure you can buy your stuff over there. So anyway, I got a motion, I got a second. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we got 4-1? All right, so that passes. Thank you for that. And then, are we doing 1646 too?
Yes, there is a resolution by title and summary. That means that we don't have to put the entire ordinance into publication. So that is, and that's required to have 4 members vote in the affirmative to, that summary that we prepared is sufficient. That's what that's about. We will need to make a modification, as you know, because the summary talks about adding it into the mixed-use C district and the industrial district. So those 2 things will need to be removed from that summary. So I think, motion to authorize, the resolution authorizing it with the notation of removing the references to the mixed-use commercial and corridor and, now I started, industrial districts would be helpful.
And you can say to be consistent with the adopted ordinance.
Okay.
Or see what the attorney said.
Yeah.
Councilor
I'm good with that
McEnany,
too.
you want to do that one again?
I'm not very good at these, but I make a motion authorizing publication by title and summary pursuant to Minnesota Statute 412191, subdivision 4 of an ordinance amending chapter 129 of the Mound City Code regarding zoning related to cannabis business.
To be modified consistent with the adopted ordinance.
Okay, that sounds good.
She
To be
had to say it?
modified with the adopted zoning ordinance.
All right, good. Good? Yeah. Like that? All right.
Yeah.
We got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we got 4-1 that it passes. So thank you guys for all your help and everybody
Thank
showing
you.
up.
Yeah.
And thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for providing these maps. We're really helpful with all the various buffers. Thank
You weren't
you.
that busy.
All right, to the fun stuff. Number 7, we got approval of bid for downtown paver sidewalks replacement, project group 2.
Matt, is that a first? Fun stuff?
The fun stuff.
That's how I usually feel when I'm here, yes. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Matt Bauman, city engineer. On June 27th, so a little while ago now, we held bids for the downtown paver sidewalks group 2 project. So this is the final phase, just a little out of sequence here. And we had 7 bids. The low bidder was Create Construction with $370,929.25. And they were roughly little over 50% lower than the engineer's estimate and 84% lower than the high bid. They did do last year's project, and they were definitely a responsible and responsive contractor, so we recommend awarding bid to them. And then the county has seen the numbers, and they are they've agreed they're gonna participate in their portion of it, so that's gonna be a little over half of the project as well. So once we get all of those pieces put together, we'll get going on construction. So you have any questions for me? Otherwise, you have a resolution approving the bid.
All right, does council have any question?
No, just glad to see it getting done. I rode my scooter over the weekend, and it was pretty bumpy, and I thought I was gonna break down the thing, because someone was watching me, they said, that's really rough, because I was like all over the place, but good project to come forth.
Yeah, and remember a couple years ago with inflation going nuts, remember that? And I think I made a comment, like, well, can't we just wait?
Yeah.
Nobody liked that comment.
It worked
but
out okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
look at this, all right. So, okay, well, we got a motion, or a resolution, does someone want to make that?
I will make a resolution authorizing final quotes and proceeding with replacement of Marion Lane Water Main, Project 2413.
No, this isn't Miriam.
Oh.
This is the
Oh,
sidewalks.
whoops.
15, or 16.
I listened to you, I just
Take that
read,
one.
it was like Anchorman, I just read what was in front of me.
1640.
Nice. You could just look at there.
I will read whatever is in front of me, whatever he says. Make a resolution accepting bid for downtown paver sidewalks. Public Works Project 24-08.
All right, got a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that passes. Okay, the next one, you got Marion.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Matt Bauman, city engineer. So this one is a little different, it's kind of off.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
What's going on?
She's asking if she should recruit herself because it's on her property, right next to her property.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Do we want to say what just happened so the public knows?
Oh, Councilmember Larson just asked if there's a conflict of interest because of location of her business property to this project. I told her that I've been reviewing it based on either statutory conflict of interest or common law conflict of interest. I didn't see one.
Okay,
So,
good, all right, thanks, go ahead.
Okay. So you all know that the Artesa development is well underway and getting close to completion. So there are some pieces of that project that we needed to expose the water main that runs on Marion Lane, at least the north and south piece that's on the project there. So what we found within the last couple of excavations, we'll say, is that the main is in pretty poor shape, and there are some joints that have lead seals on them. And so with those two things that we found, and then the fact that the roadway is gonna be, brand new and completely rebuilt when they're done, we started looking into, what it would cost to replace this main. We feel like we need to make a move now to get it replaced. Digging through the as-built, the record drawings, it doesn't even exist in any of them as far as like when it was put in, so we're assuming this is one of the oldest mains in town. And so we've talked to a few contractors, we've got some idea of the price, some quotes. So we're looking to get approval to proceed with finalizing quotes and spending up to about $100,000 to get this work done. And then we could do that in an efficient manner. We don't have to pay for the full street, only part of it is there now. And then the developer is really responsible for putting most of it back. And so we can do it for roughly $100,000 now. If we waited and tried to do it all on our own, open cutting, it's probably gonna be double that amount. And then as for funding it, we had proposed foregoing the cast iron pipeline assessment line that's in the capital improvement plan, which was $80,000. So it's a little bit more than that amount estimated right now, but pretty close. So it would, it should come out, about in that range. So we are asking to get finalized quotes and proceed with construction on this so that we can do it, kind of quickly and stay within the stay closely within Artesa's completion of getting that street done as well.
I have a couple of questions.
And was the $80,000 thing you just replaced it with, was that gonna go in the same area?
No, it's pretty broad. That was a line we put in there a few years ago where we were gonna start, looking at sections of town that have the old cast iron mains, and just so we can get a handle on what that's gonna look like and getting that in get the capital improvement plan eventually. That spread out, so that's a repeating item for like the next 5 years. And so we haven't touched it yet, and it just makes sense that let's get some of the worst cast iron replaced while we're there, and that's a good trade-off.
I have a couple of questions, because actually, I guess I missed this, but when Artesa did their first presentation to us, I thought that they were taking on Marion Road, and that Marion was going to actually go into their parking, their open parking, as an access to their underground. And so when they put in the I guess what I'll call the temporary new pavement, and it curbs, it does not enter into the Artesa property at all. But they are responsible now for putting that road back, correct?
Jesse, can you go back to the figure there?
Because I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what is Marion Road? Is it really a road, or is it an alley? Because there's no address on it. It's to the back of the properties on Commerce, and it's not going into the Artesa property. And, it swings out and comes out into Commerce, creating 2 driveways, or 3 driveways, actually.
Yeah, so.
Right after each other, which is not pedestrian friendly, so.
It's gonna be widened out to a full street width there, and then the fire department is kind of relying on that close access as well.
For Artesa?
One of the pieces around there. So when Artesa's done, so, they've cut off Auditors, and this becomes their drive and parking area. This part of Auditors is gonna kind of wrap up and connect to Marion Lane, and then there's a piece here that we're not proposing to do anything with right now, but, so from here up, this is all gonna be brand new.
I can't really see it, but that's okay. No,
Yeah.
it's my vision
Yeah,
issue.
from Auditors all the way up to Old Shoreline. is
So
gonna be
you're
brand
saying
new.
that Marion will go into Auditors?
Yeah, they're adding in a piece here to connect it all. So right now, this is
Because right
grass.
now they have it curved, so they're taking out that curve, and,
I haven't been over there in a few days, I'm not exactly sure
well, I
what it
haven't, yeah,
looks like
it's
exactly right
been
now.
a couple of weeks since I was over there last.
It's not connected to Harbor Place right now. It's curved, like you said, still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
So yeah, they're gonna end up adding a piece.
And so,
connect.
we are taking it as a city street. It's going to be our responsibility. It's
It is
not
a
part
city.
of- Yeah.
Marion Lane is a city street right now.
Okay.
So
Which will
but
continue.
they are replacing it and rebuilding it because of the work that they had to do. They had to replace some sanitary sewer in there, and that's part of their project. So right now, it's, where the street exists right now, it's half built, and they did that over the summer, or over the winter, so that it could be
Yeah.
plowed. And then they have to finish that construction yet, so it's not even complete. Anyways,
Right.
that helps keep the cost down for us getting in there to do the
Yeah,
water.
I saw it as being a temporary road at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it makes sense to go ahead and do the piping work before paving it, because I hate the fact that we put down a new street and then go and dig it up a year later.
Right.
But I guess I was just concerned that it seems like it's a street that doesn't have a function. And, should we be thinking about that differently?
In other words, not have a street there?
Well, yeah, or classify it as an alley.
I mean, it is small.
Or, or if it's an alley, could you squeeze parking on there? Since parking is always an issue. Take one lane and make it diagonal parking, kind of like what they're doing at the library.
I think we'd have to revisit a lot of the parts of the planning with Artesa, and then as far as the fire code and stuff there, with that review, and I don't remember all those details off the top of my head.
So, do you think, would this be kind of part of what we do across the street, like all the parking? The stuff that we clean up behind the buildings on the west side of Commerce? Would it be part of that district that the Public Works takes care of? I don't know if I'm.
I don't know if I can answer that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what conversation you're talking about.
We currently do plow it and we maintain it.
Mhm.
So, I think Matt and I are both here tonight because the biggest thing is we found multiple lead joints.
Yeah.
And to keep the water main going, we need to remove that, you know, as
Yeah,
soon
and
as possible. So that's the biggest key to this, is that we found enough evidence, multiple joints, that the whole section there is gonna have to be replaced.
Yeah, and I get that part, and I support that. I'm just thinking about, in the long term, that we have this street that now we're having to maintain on an ongoing basis, and what is its functionality for the city? Which, I think it's really more, this is really more of a question to our, not Artesa, what is it, what's their development?
It's Artesa now.
Well, it's Artesa's a development, but it's Life Source. Lifestyle communities. You know,
Well,
It's providing right of way over our pipe, so you have access to
right.
that, and it loops that whole block.
So this
So we don't have
pipeline,
multiple
does this
dead
pipeline
ends.
service Artesa?
I'm sorry?
This pipeline, that we're gonna replace the joints, does it service the Artesa building?
The only property that this one specifically has a service off of is the ice cream shop
Oh,
right now,
really?
but it is,
Okay.
but it loops though, so that helps keep, better water for the other buildings around.
In the
as well.
future.
Yep.
The more dead ends that we create, the more water issues we see. So we want to keep it moving.
Mhm.
So what you're saying right now is that where Marion Lane is right now, and it used to curve up to join Commerce, it's not gonna join Commerce anymore, Marion Lane.
No, it will. This isn't changing going from it.
Okay.
This is not changing. They're just cutting out, what's it called now?
Harbor Place.
Harbor
Harbor
Place.
Place,
Yeah.
They're cutting Harbor Place off.
Okay.
And this is gonna turn up and connect to Marion as well.
Okay.
And so
It'll be
the
T.
full, yeah. So
How wide, if it's a city street, how wide do city streets have to be? And the reason I'm saying is, it is so narrow
Yeah.
back there. And like Sherry was saying, I think in the the dinosaur days, it was like an alley, because it was so narrow back there. But I don't think you could have two-way traffic on that street. So, is there any plans on widening that?
Yes, it's gonna be widened from what it was. It's basically the roadway is gonna be the full width of the right-of-way that's left of it.
Okay.
So, and I think it's 24 feet.
Is it gonna impact the ice cream shop? Is that
No,
width?
that side's staying the same. That's the,
Eh, what?
that side is staying the same. That's the edge on that side.
Okay, that's the edge on that.
Yep, so
But as
it's
far
still
as-
gonna feel narrow. Yep.
Yeah,
It's not normal, our normal city streets are 28 feet wide.
Okay.
I think this is 24, which is
Okay.
the
Okay,
the
that
fire
makes
truck
sense,
code.
because when I drove it, even I'm blind.
I feel like some of the
Narrow.
roads on the island were a little narrow.
Yeah.
okay, someone want to make a motion for this?
I could try to redeem myself. Let's see, read off the screen this time. I'd like to make a resolution finalizing quotes proceeding with replacement of Marion Lane water main.
All right, got a motion, can I get a second? Second. Okay, got a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a comment to Public Works, and you may be already working on this. Right now, the ice cream shop has some barriers, and, people are sitting out into the street. And I know they have a zero lot line. It's a really thriving business. It's clearly an attraction point for the town, because every time I go there, there are people from all over coming there. And so I would hope that we could try and work with them on figuring out a more beautification improvement to accommodate their needs for their customers. I think there are 2 parking spots that they basically have taken and are using that for parking bikes and stuff. But if maybe we can work with them on how to improve that, and also make it safe for people going into Merriam, because the turn is right there. So that's just something for the future.
I do know that that's been a temporary thing, and they've had to be moved multiple times around due to construction, but I'll take it back to Jesse, and we can work with them and figuring out a solution moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
So, did you vote yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 5-0, right? All right, so that's approved. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, number 9, we got City Council 2024 priorities, mid-year check-in. I know we're getting late, but
Yeah.
we put it on here, so. Are you able to modify this, like, and make it green, or do you want to just write a note for later?
I should just make a note for later. I
That's
did this
fine.
in
All
Word,
right.
so.
Well, just, yeah. Again, number 1, obviously, one of our main priorities is water, getting the water treatment plant down the road and getting funding. So we did get the 10.3. The comment there, need to release that. Remember, this is done earlier in this year, 2024. We did get that released, and now that it is released, we're trying to design and do water main work, which again, we've already, I think we voted on that last time or the time before. I think it was last time, yeah. So we're on the way there. We also got another 957, I think, thousand from the federal side. The 26 million from the 2024 bonding bill we did not get because nobody got anything. They didn't do a bonding bill. So I would just scratch that as red.
But I think that we do need to be diligent, and whoever our new elected people are, is to get them to, one, vote for a bonding bill.
Right.
So that we can get money from the bonding bill.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of dual purpose there.
So I know you and some other council members, you've been down there, as well as, using your contacts with people you know as well as us, and we're trying. We're trying to do what we can to, get the right people down there, but, of course, our just 2 people, senator and rep, it's, there's so many other people, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna keep fighting, and
Yeah, but
I know you'll be part of it.
they got to vote so that their colleagues will support them.
Right.
And funding.
So, again, we'll look at this next year, but probably gonna say, 2025 down the road. But anyway, we're gonna scratch that one because we didn't technically do it, but nobody got it, so anyway. Look into the economic development, whatever, grants to community. We are constantly doing that with Bolton and Mink. They have, as they hear things, they'll let us know and submit on our behalf. So again, I kind of call that as a green personally, unless anybody has a problem with that. Lobbyist, we shot to next season. Again, really, we're the lobbyist. We're lobbying for our city and lobbying our people, but again, maybe next year if we want to bring that back up, we can do that. Testing for manganese, we already did that, and we did talk about that back at the water meeting back in March, I think it was, the state of the water. You can see that on YouTube. They're still high. Budget, so this will be a big thing coming up here in the next few months with the budget committee, so we've talked with our city manager, Jesse, of, he has new eyes coming into the city, and is there anything that, hey, we were kind of doing something, before, maybe we, is there other ways to do that? we're giving him a little grace period because he's trying to, get up and going on everything, but that'll be a big thing that I'm gonna kind of be pushing as we go through the budget here. As we look into next year, is there any other ways that we can, do that? So I would still maybe kind of keep that unchecked, because we're gonna do that in the summer here.
Do we have a ballpark schedule for like when our first budget committee meeting might be?
It's gonna come fast here.
Yeah, it should be in the next month.
Okay.
Pretty much August, all of August, we're gonna be
Okay.
chatting.
Not July 25th?
No. Is that, you're gone, or?
It's just like this one Thursday
All
that,
right,
yeah.
we won't do it that day. The water bill monthly, we kind of flirted with that, kind of talked about it. And again, with our couple residents that came, or I guess business owners that came this earlier today. Again, that's kind of why I wanted a monthly thing, because
by the time you get your bill after a quarter, no, I think they do get a monthly though, right? With businesses?
I believe it's still all quarterly.
They're quarter, okay. So, you know, by the time you get it, you're like, holy crap, you know, oh, I have a leaky toilet. Again, I would say put that as red though, because we did not do that. We did not put that part of our long-term financial plan. I think it's somewhat wanted out there, but at the same point, like I pay my payment through like my bank on a bill pay, and I just literally do just, you know, a certain amount every month, and then I pay the you know, the overage as a secondary, so I kind of budget it monthly anyway. So I guess we can teach people to do that, but I would put that as red, or we're not doing anymore. Long-term financial plans, we're not adopted, but we're completed with that. Utility, and then we got their last presentation. Communication website, again, with the website, that's kind of a yellow. We're, you know, working on it per se, and I know Councilmember McEnany has a lot of time and energy spent with Maggie as well and different vendors. So it is in process. We're working on it, so that's good. Facebook is official. Last fall, I do see Maggie's putting stuff out there all the time. If any of the council or even residents want to put something out there, just let us know, and we can, you know, if it's appropriate, we can maybe throw it out there. Just on that, I don't know if you guys saw it, but we have an Olympian, a student-to-be Olympian. They reached out to me and said, you know, it'd be nice if we did something, and I actually offered to have them come to the meeting tonight, but I mean, they're probably busy doing things. But so I think they're going to do a send-off this week, and then you know, you can look for her. Is it Sarah Bacon? There's two of them. One was from our city, and one wasn't. It's Bacon and Cook, like cooking bacon. So, anyway, look for them. But yeah, that was on there. Instagram is up and live. We got that going. This fire department thing should be green. I'm pretty sure we did that. Liquor store, I think same thing. We did that. It wouldn't hurt to do it again though. I mean, just, hey, just want to make sure you guys follow our city site. I don't think that should be just a one-time deal. But maybe have, if you want to reach out to Maggie and just be like, hey, shoot it out, you know, every 6 weeks or something, or whatever. Meet the Staff Wednesday, I know we were kind of putting that on hold a little bit for Instagram for one thing, but then also, if I remember right, it was kind of like the new website and stuff too, right?
Well, it's all done.
Oh,
I just need to
okay.
get pictures. Like,
Okay, good.
I think I'm meeting with the whole,
Okay.
we've got all the
Cool,
questions.
all right.
Yeah.
So pretty soon that'll be
But
green.
correct, we were waiting for Instagram,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a great Instagram post.
Nice, okay. So that should be, so I would leave it maybe yellow until we do it, but the fire and the liquor store should be green. Newsletter, again, we added the 4 pages. We're doing our best there. Park feature, whole works. Digital newsletter, again, this is all, I'd put that almost up with the website and stuff, because we're gonna try to, once we upgrade our website, then we're gonna, you know, do all that. Surfside Park, that's all done. We did the renting from the park. We looked at ordinances and the jet ski stuff, so that's all done. Harbor Park, just talked about that last week, getting new bids. Again, big thing for me personally was I want the whole thing done, you know, kind of at the same time, you know, so we go into like the new year. Again, remember that's phase 1. There's two or three phases that, you know, whenever we do those, but at least phase 1 will be done. Dandelion's gone, hopefully. The funding, I'd put that as green because that's the 700 that we got from the land in the first place, but then also the funding, we put that in the long-term financial plan for the phase 2 and 3. So I would call that green. Renaming the park, we just did that, so that's good. Adding to the Anderson Sister, I personally would say that's a done deal because we are adding with the pathway, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you meant more than that, but we are adding, you know, from the trail up to kind of like Dakota Trail, right? That
Yeah.
concrete walkway.
Oh, that.
In phase 1.
Yeah, but we're also looking at going all the way around Lost Lake.
Okay.
Following Wilshire. And Jesse, I met with Jesse and the staff about that, and we have to talk to Hennepin County. 'Cause
Okay.
those are Hennepin County roads, but
So that, don't, you know,
do that done yet, right?
Yeah,
We're working on that. Okay.
working on it.
Good. Crosswalk installed hopefully this year. They look like they're getting things done, so.
Yeah.
I saw they got all these other pork chops along the road. So that's a good sign for us. The trail to put up signs and local businesses, you guys are working on that, wayfinding in parks. So that stays as is. Age-friendly, the grant, did we ever hear back?
The grant, we didn't get the grant that was written for parks, but we're looking at age-friendly grants are gonna come out in July.
Okay.
The requests, so we're looking at that. Actually, WeCab got an age-friendly grant last year, I found out.
Okay.
So we did have a grant in the community.
So at least we applied for it. Unfortunately, didn't get it, but we can maybe do it
Keep
again next
trying.
year. Yep. Public Works Director's done, Ryan. Code enforcement, I mean, again, I think we kind of did a lot of that, didn't we, Scott?
I feel like some of that's ongoing by nature.
Yeah, it's
though, too.
ongoing. I mean, I'm still working with regard to the administrative citation part that we talked about. I'm still putting that together, but it's ongoing.
Okay.
And it never ends.
Yeah, so I would say we are, and remember, we did tighten that up in how we respond, right, after 3 or whatever. So I would call that, yeah, ongoing or, done or whatever you want to call it. I will say the housing inspector thing, we use, who again?
Well, we used Minspect,
Minspect,
who
yeah.
sold to Safe Build.
Yeah.
So our contract with Minspec goes through the end of the year, and we've been, I would say, cautiously looking around just because we've got some new faces and things, but
Yeah.
so right now it is technically Safe Built, but it was Minspec.
Okay. And just kind of a background on that, some of the people that were in there, and I heard some stuff over the last couple of years of, they weren't exactly happy with some of the people that were part of that. They're not, at least day-to-day there, right? Or they're sold to a different group. So that's a good thing, I think, because I heard that. But second of all, it doesn't ever hurt to just bid our contract in the first place. So I know we talked about, by the end of the year, you use your judgment if you think we should bid or not. But, I know there's other inspectors out there. But again, if you really like this new group and you think we're getting a good deal, then I'm open to that too. I would get rid of the workshop because, again, I think we kind of did that in the live meeting anyway. Mound Citizen of the Year, we're gonna do that. We already did it. We're gonna announce it again in this next newsletter in August. So I would, all that's done. Jason, look at there. Yeah, that's the whole thing is done. Tree lighting, I know you guys are working on that. We just talked about that was that a workshop or?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So I know you guys are working on that. In our new park, again, I'd imagine it's gotta be done by November, middle of November when we have this. But we're looking at, light walk-through display kind of a deal. If we work with Public Works, creating some kind of walk-through thing, get some lights. It doesn't have to be crazy the first year, but, there's something nice that we could do a fire pit, that kind of thing. So I'd put all that as yellow, I guess, that we're working on it. Email signatures, you guys did all that, right, as staff?
Yes.
I know I said include pics. I don't think anybody has pictures, but at least you all have,
They're all consistent now?
consistent-ish. At least you have something. I don't know if it all says the same look, but.
It does.
does,
There might be maybe some font issues here and there, but
Right.
there's a format.
Okay. And customer service obviously is an ongoing thing, but, thing that we're, always striving to do. State of water update, that's all done, like we talked about. Development, I talked to Jesse about, remember back when, right, the day that we did the moratorium, remember there was some developers that wanted to come in here and,
Right.
like, of all the times you could have picked, the day that we do the moratorium. So I said, can you reach back out to any of these people and just, so he's kind of had some struggles with Sarah trying to reach out to or I guess on his own. So then he had asked Sarah, hey, can you help me try to get, if these people own the land, we're sending them a letter, well, I don't know if they're getting it, good contact information. I know they came here and talked, We know when they did, but if they're listening to this, you know, we want development in our town, so come talk to us. Stormwater, I think we kind of redded this out. We're not gonna do this. Talked about it with Public Works, our new Public Works Director as well. And just not something we're gonna take this year. Not gonna do it for now. Spirit of Lakes tent, we're definitely doing that, in the next, couple weeks here. Did we cut any, is that the end of it? Did we, I know we had more. Oh, there it is, yeah. Orono Police Department, Beach Lake Calls, Mantrista, look at the contract. I would say that C, the homeless problem social worker, I'd put as either green or yellow. I mean, we're always, that's an ongoing thing that we're working with them. But I will say A and B, we just had a workshop tonight, and that's just something that we're, you know, kind of exploring. Our contract comes up at the end of this year for our Orono Police Department. We're fully supportive of Orono. We love the police. As a city, we do want to look at, you know, is there other options that we can look at with other places or doing our own thing or whatever. But again, very, very first steps per se on that, but we just did that tonight. More to come on that. 16, city contributions to organizations. I guess we didn't really do that per se, but I know that came up with like the barrel thing, or, you know, do we have like a max that we would give organizations that they come for us, you know, for money? We could almost put the, you know, like a water thing, just like what just happened tonight, you know, do we give him just, you know, some leeway, you know, on what he can do? I mean, how much can you spend a day? I mean, you can spend a lot of money. We talked about that the other day.
There's technically per the purchasing policy, I think it's 25,000 or something before. Granted, I got to have Noah sign off on it.
Right.
But, you know, statutory requirements and all that with quotes and things would prevent me from getting overzealous. But this is actually interesting because if the skate park came up 2 weeks ago as well.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation with Michelle, the skate park owner, about looking for ways to help local groups use public facilities in charitable ways that would be outside of the normal scope of our public lands permits. So I think that for what it's worth, this is sort of still being worked on, even if it wasn't being done directly. So I don't know how you want to categorize it, but
yeah, I mean, that's fine. So I would just say, like, we're kind of working on that. But again, if you want to be more specific about what exactly we should and shouldn't do, and then you can at least point to, you know, hey, this is what we've done in the past, this is what our new way of doing it. A versus B, number 17, we've done that. We decided not to go farther on changing how we are. Starting a council meeting at 6 instead of 7, and workshops so far have been at 5. So we've been here since 5, so 4 hours. But, you know, so far, so good, right? Redevelopment, I guess we really haven't done that, per se. I guess, I don't know who added that, but, do you remember? Anyway, that we're not technically doing, per se. We're letting kind of the businesses come and do their own thing, I guess. So I put that as, for now, almost like a red, like we're not really gonna even go down that road right now. What do you think?
well, we're always identifying blight, especially when it's reported to staff, and that's sort of part of your code enforcement section as well. But there's a couple projects, one that was here for a council introduction 2 months ago, that I would consider light blight redevelopment, but
Oh, the Commerce project?
yeah, I mean that.
Which one's that?
The Commerce, those condos. The three buildings.
fourplexes.
Three fourplexes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, right now that's grass, but if they extend it, yeah.
I'm being generous.
Yes, okay, well then, let's do a yellow, that's good.
I think
That's-
we've been worn down on the Williams Building. We've been talking about it for so many years,
Yeah.
and it's still there.
All right. Well, and I don't know how much you can or can't say on that, but you say nothing, you can't say anything. Okay.
Is that, I will say that, for informational purposes, it's getting close to getting, at least the hazardous condition part of it getting wrapped up.
Okay.
I will
okay.
say that it's, but I've been feeling close for a year and a half.
Consistent.
Yeah.
We've been feeling close since.
Yeah.
Yeah, since Paul and I got on
Yeah.
council. That was
Paul, you said you've been here a
5
long
years
time.
ago.
No,
All right.
not here.
I know.
So call that a yellow then. And there's other, properties and stuff that I know I've had people or developers say, they're interested kind of thing, but it has to come together, so. Okay, well, let's do that. So here's your shot. Remember, we kind of did this in the, winter, kind of right into the new year per se. Is there anything that we're missing here when you guys think about what else should we be doing right now? What should we be adding? I know there's other things that we're probably working on that's not on this, but like, maybe what's a new topic that we're missing that,
Yeah, that's a lot.
I'm thinking of.
Where are we with this building and selling it? Did we look into the title, value, any of those things?
Yes, we looked at the title. Valuation, I think I found somebody
Okay.
who works for CBRE.
Okay,
He asked for information from me.
okay.
That's what these are.
Ah,
So, I haven't even looked at these, but Kevin, thank you. So, I have pictures, I don't know how much he needs to kind of get started on it, but he just emailed me back and said, yeah, it's somebody I happen to go to undergrad with, who's vice president at CBRE, so.
Can you put number 20 as Centennial Building? Any new ones that, like, again, when we leave here and we go, gosh, this is bugging me, why aren't we talking about this at city council? Here's your shot. And if you can't tonight, just bring it next time, but.
Well, I ran into a gentleman recently, I spoke at a conference on isolation, and he is with a group called, I'm not going to remember their name, but anyway, they're a nonprofit, and they will help seniors do adjustments to their homes for sustainable living. Like they'll help build ramps for free and things like that. And having door knocked, and you've done it too, Jason, you know the conditions of many of our houses and the front ways. And I thought it might be worth exploring with his organization if they could allocate and maybe make a commitment that they do 10% of their work in next year in Mound, helping people build ramps or doing easy access into their homes. Some of it's just replacing doorknobs instead of knobs, having handles that turn, or, they don't build chairlifts, but, they can certainly do exterior ramps and adjustments like that to help folks just be able to live in their homes more sustainably.
So
So that could be a nice program where it wouldn't necessarily cost us money, because they get federal money. They got money from HUD before. They had like $2 million to do this program statewide.
So what do you want to call that on 21? What's the title there?
Live well at home. That's what they call it.
Jesse, live well at home, and then can you work with Jesse to
Mhm.
figure out
Sure.
next steps if what that would look like? Okay, anything else? All right, well, let's, you gotta read, so we're gonna move on to the closed session, number 10, city manager review. Attorney's gonna read a thing.
Okay, so, the city of Mound, or the city council for Mound will be holding a closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3A of the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act to evaluate the performance of the city manager. Staff is asking for a motion to close this meeting for the performance evaluation pursuant to the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act.
Okay, so can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, and a second? I got two motions.
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion on this? Once we close here, we'll go back into the conference room, just council, attorney, and then, is it just that, or are we having Kevin or no?
No, we don't,
Just us.
because we're gonna do the recording.
Yeah,
We
someone
said-
give me a recording.
Yeah.
A recorder. Okay.
And then we should probably turn off the video.
He will.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll go into the, well, hold on. That's a motion. I got a
Yeah.
second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we're closed for this. We'll be back.
We need to move in there.
All right, I'm gonna open back the meeting for our city council meeting. It's Tuesday, July 9th, and it's 9:58 PM. We were in a closed session to evaluate the city manager's performance and a review of our city manager. And outcome was good. He passed the review, and we're gonna bump his salary to the year one table that is on the city manager table site. And in January, he'll go to the year two table. All right, so we're gonna, I have my agenda now. So now number 11, we're gonna go to comments and reports from council members. Councilmember Pugh.
Okay, well, I did contact Commissioner Kevin Anderson from Hennepin County. We had, I think several of us have gotten calls from members of some of the condo associations who've had challenges with the appraisals on their units. So I did get a response from Kevin. He's pulled together some information, and he's willing to do a conference call or a meeting with those residents to talk about what possible remedies they might have in approaching getting their assessments redone. I also talked to him about the crosswalk needed at the trail on Commerce, and also I brought up the fact that for the library, the kids who are in my neighborhood, we're directly, I'm directly east of the library on Commerce, that all of the kids from my neighborhood have to cross Commerce, which is kind of dangerous, and that we need a crosswalk either at Balsam or Tonkawood. And so he said he would also look into that. He said that he's going to be focusing more on senior community in the next year, and he's also going to be stepping up, putting articles in the newspaper about things at the counties. He's going to be doing more outreach information work in the next year. So that was good to meet with him. Let me think, what else did I have? With the following up to, I talked about us looking at becoming more of an attraction center for family tourism. So I did get a contact name in Hennepin County, Mr. Hernandez, who's part of the, he's part of the Office of Minnesota Tourism, and he works with Hennepin County cities. And so I have a call in to him to meet with us. Hopefully we can get him to meet with city staff and talk about what are some of the key components you need to look at if you're trying to build a tourism industry. So those are my activities.
Okay. Councilmember Larson.
Well, the only thing I have to report is the fire commission meeting on St. Bonnie that Jesse, you and I attended today, so I'm gonna let you talk about it.
Oh, okay. All right, Councilmember McEnany.
Just a reminder that Music in the Park is this Thursday from 6 to 8 at Surfside.
All right. And this is steel drums, right?
Pardon me, yes. It's the Panhandlers Steel
Panhandlers.
Drum.
That's what it is, yeah. I remember going on the boat or something last year, and I heard that. It's kind of interesting. Great, my computer's dead. Okay, Councilmember Castellano.
I don't have anything, just a request for Jesse on the Harbor Wine and Spirits report. Ron used to include like the year-to-date info for sales. Can you have him put it back in?
Yeah, it's interesting it's not on there.
They're doing great. I just was noticed that the month to date was there, but the year to date's not.
Yeah, I might maybe got cut off.
But I got nothing.
Okay. So just on the fire department, we met with, I think, all the mayors of each of the cities that our fire department currently serves, as well as some council members and city managers, or administrators, I guess. And, yeah, we're, I guess, outsourcing the gentleman from the state fire board or something?
Fire marshal's office.
Fire marshal?
Yeah.
And he gave us a presentation and just, if we go down this road and kind of, the positive and negatives, the feelings that you might have, one way or the other, but we got meetings almost, monthly, I guess, and some couple in a month over the next, to the end of the year, basically, to kind of just see what this could look like if we want to go down this road. Again, just a couple of my notes. The volunteered, paid that we have, they're paged to the station when they report, whereas career, they're staffed and paid. It's a career, it's like that's what they do for a living. And then we have duty crew, and in duty crew, and again, we're just volunteer, but duty crew does some hours that they would actually live, how many hours a night or so many per month at the fire department and kind of be the first to go. So, again, one of the parts of why we're looking at this is kind of taking some of the pressure off the guys, or I should say the staff, the fire group. Mutual aid and auto aid, some of these are topics we already know about, but mutual aid is where they kind of back each other up. Typically, it's like an 8-hour thing. So if we get to a fire and we're called on the mutual aid button, we have to go help them out. 8 hours is free. It's just, next time maybe they get us. That's 8 hours total. That's not including per, firefighter. Each person has so many hours of what they're doing and our equipment, whatever, but it's, it's 8 hours, 8 physical hours. And then after that, then you can kind of charge for, your time and what you use. So there's a couple ways that we can go about this. And again, a lot of this is way too far down the road that we're not really want to talk about right now, but anywhere from what's wrong with what we're doing all the way to, let's change everything, kind of how we're doing it. But one big takeaway too is the staff, the fire department, pretty much everybody has, according to Chief Peterson, has been talked to about this potential change down the road for 10 years, he said. It's somewhat expected that it's, could happen, potentially. And, a lot of, from what it sounds like, people are on board with it, with at least the possibility of, this new way to do it. So the average time, which we found out tonight, is a 5-year process from start to finish. So that was a little bit of a eye roll up, I think, for both of us, because like, oh my gosh, and part of it's, it's time and energy for us, but also staff and, Greg and, a lot of people. So, if we want to do this, we want to make sure we're going down the right path, making a good decision. And I think maybe towards the end of the year, we'll know a little bit better about where we're, if this makes sense. And the big other takeaway was why. Why are we doing this? What's the point of it? And whether it's our city or any other cities that, team up for this, we got to be able to explain to our residents, why are we changing? What's the point? Why are we changing what we got? Everything's working fine. Well, is it? We got to explain the why. So anyway, so that's that. More to come on that. Can you pull up those pictures? So as you probably know, we put in a 3-way stop deal was so hard to turn left. So we did that, so you'll see cones and stop signs everywhere. But this is the other update where Hennepin County, after how many years of complaining, I think they finally heard it. And good, bad, other, the rules of the past was always you do not stop and you keep going, and they gotta, the people crossing have to figure it out and kind of wait for their turn. Now this says you do need to stop. I've asked Jesse to reach out to Hennepin County of, here's the new sign, it's great, everybody, but they're doing their thing, listening to music, and they don't know the new rules, and right, so like we need to put some kind of major thing here. I mean, I know we got major things all over the town, but
That's gonna be dangerous. Do they still have the stop sign on the trail?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
So technically,
Trail people should be stopping.
both.
But the reason this is frustrating is, people stop in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
You don't have to, now they're gonna be bolting right through it and running people over. I think this is really dangerous,
So,
this change.
yeah, so we're
I
gonna,
think they should have made a huge gigantic stop at the trail.
that's what we're doing on the other side, right? Shoreline.
Yeah.
This is, as of right now, the answer for this. Remember, we talked about this a
I
couple
know,
weeks
I
ago.
do.
That was a missed opportunity.
But
This-
I don't think this is the right solution. I
Well-
think I wouldn't let my kids, I'd say never cross that street. Stop and make sure there's no cars coming. I would never trust
Yeah.
the
And
traffic here.
so I think it's a messaging thing of how we get the word out that this has changed. Again, there's the bike thing there with the person, right? And that's always been there, right? And that's over on Shoreline as well. This new thing is that, you gotta stop, and you see the line that they painted, right?
Yeah.
Which is comfortably away from the crosswalk. It's gonna be a learning curve, because it's been completely different. People were trained, you don't stop, and you keep going and honk horn at people. Now it's gonna be, no, this is a crosswalk. So again, what I've asked Jesse to do is, we need some kind of flasher thing, right? When we changed over on the island,
Yeah.
we did the flasher on the stop sign thing. I don't know how you can figure that out, but we need something more of an alert thing here. So if you can, I know you've already looking into it, but, again, part of this is the county. We don't, it's going through our town, but the county just
It's
will
their
do
road.
it. It's their road. They'll do what they want. So we can't be like, well, take that down. That's stupid. I guess we can try, but,
I worry about kids on their bikes.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Right.
I just,
so I hope if nothing else, this helps over time, that, when you are crossing, I mean, I've been at it a few times now where people have stopped, and I do worry from Walgreens coming this way, that it's just gonna jam up, that whole deal, but the other way, I'm not that as worried about. But anyway, so I just wanted to, I know you guys have all seen this, but just, I think it's, longer term, it's gonna be a win, because this was needed in some aspect. It's just gonna be a retrain of everybody's brain that goes through this intersection. So we're gonna throw it in the newsletter, we're gonna put it on social, we're gonna try to get the word out. I'm saying it now, so maybe it hits the paper, who knows, but, anyway, look for that. Do you have that other thing that
Pavers?
yeah. So remember I had mentioned the paver, the bricks, downtown,
Yeah.
and how you can't read any of them? So I walked down there the other day. I don't know if you guys can read that, but I can almost not read. So the guy, look at the one on the right? You can see the one on the left. Tell me if you can read any of that. I mean, it's pretty
some
tough.
are in better shape than others.
Right. So I've asked Jesse to give me a master list of, he gave it to me, I didn't really need it, but I said, find a master list, find all these people that donate all this money. So you guys can get it too if you want, but there's an Excel spreadsheet of each year and the different phases of when they did this. I think the one question I have still, or maybe we're trying to find it still, is what does all that say? Because we got the checks, we got, this person gave 75, this one gave 250, but what does all that say? Because literally you can't read most of them, most of them. So do you send a letter to each of those people saying, hey,
Are you trying to replicate?
I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna try to leave it to
might be a
parks.
good project to give to an artist. An artist can always figure out how to take those names and weave it, or a quilter. That
As a
would be kind of
previous
interesting, give it to a
contributor, I
quilter.
wouldn't need to, it's been
It's been
15
time,
years.
right, yeah.
I mean, I think
know
we
some-
need to really think through this.
Right, so just because I said this the other day, and I went down and took a picture, I just want all you guys to know, if you haven't walked down there lately, it's pretty tough. You cannot.
Yeah, I walked down
You
there
can't read them
last
all,
week.
and they're all crap, so with this new plan of this Phase 2 park, right? And this is why it came up, because if we're gonna put that into the new thing, we need to come up with, we can't use this. We can't use these bricks anymore. These need to go in the garbage, when we're done with this, when we do Phase 2 of this area. As a council, do we say, well, we're gonna try to honor the past and move forward? Or do we say, no, going forward, we're just,
I'm all about honoring the past, but I think this is too laborious.
yeah? Well, and again, right now,
And
we.
again, I don't think most people that donated, it was a brand-new area, it was 20 years ago. And people were really excited to try to donate towards this cause. I think that we've all gotten our money and our memories and our joy out of it.
Yeah, okay.
That's just my feeling as a donator.
So, as this gets farther down the road and you guys want to talk about it on parks, I just,
Yeah.
you know how it looks, so. I would say we cannot salvage these. When we redo this, these need to go away, and then you're right, we either move forward or honor the past and try to recreate it, and then what is the cost of that? And that's a whole nother thing. And, again, we're trying to find a list of what people wanted it to say, because we can't find that right now. So, we might not have a choice. Might have a choice, so. Anyway, that's all I got. Any other comments from you guys? Okay, do you have anything?
Part of the fire commission was to bring a resolution basically solidifying that the cities are, that we have a committee that's attending these. If that's something you'd like, I can have it at the next meeting. It's sort of a confirmation of what's already been confirmed by the Mound City Council, so I'm not sure. I guess I'll defer.
Yeah, bring it at the next meeting. Yeah.
The only, I'll just show you one quick one. The Dutch Lake dock is in. This was some pictures in progress. As of today, there's some ADA work that needs to be done. Otherwise, this was being installed over the last couple days. And I had Ryan make sure that he or whoever was there took plenty of pictures, so there will be more, but,
Yeah. Did
just
the
a quick
neighbors come out?
He said a couple neighbors came out and took a look, but there weren't any comments or anything.
Okay.
So, that's all I got.
All right, good, thanks. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, you got a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we're adjourned.